I'm good.
Oh, you got one? You feeling good?
I got one.
Good job. It's your pen anyway. I know it's my pen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time is 5:59 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order promptly at 6 p.m. But if you'd like to speak in public comment or agenda address this evening, we encourage you to scribble your Mr. and Mrs. Pontiac, John Hancock on the clipboard. This meeting of your Pontiac City Council is hereby called to order for March 21st, 2023. We shall proceed with the people's business. Councilman Parker, can you introduce this evening's invocation?
Thank you, Brother President. This evening, I'd like to introduce Pastor Coley Grace of the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. He will be giving us our invocation this evening.
And if you could, the microphone button on the right at the base, and the light will turn on red. Nope.
No.
We'll work on it. Do you want to try and attach the microphone at the base more, Clerk Doyle?
Sure, why don't we try? Let me take mine. Oh, look at God.
Amen. If we can bow our heads. Father in heaven, Lord God, we thank you, we praise you, we magnify you, and we glorify you for this day and yet another opportunity to praise your holy name. Lord God, we come before you today just thanking you for life, health, and strength. We thank you for the men and women that are gathered here. But Lord God, I pray that you would let your wisdom, your knowledge, and everything else necessary in order to lead this city into a place where you deem fit to fall fresh upon us. Lord God, may your truth be revealed. May your light shine brighter. May the voices of those most silent be heard loud and clear. Defend their cause, oh God. Lord, let this governing body do exactly what you've called it to do. We pray for wisdom. We pray for strength. We pray for courage to do what is right and what is good for the citizens of Pontiac. Lord, we love you. We thank you. We magnify you and we glorify you. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. We remember those in our community that we have lost since we gathered last as a city. In particular, we raise the name of Mr. Harold Hank Harris. We'll be doing a presentation and a resolution in his honor. But if you could join us as a community, remembering him, an active and enthusiastic advocate for Pontiac, who also served us neighbors as a volunteer on multiple city boards and commissions through the decades. Please join us for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Carrington.
Present.
Goodman.
Here.
James.
Here.
McGinnis.
Present.
Nicholson.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Rutherford.
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
All right, quorum being established, all members present and voting. We proceed now. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Parker. Could I please have a motion to amend? Now that that motion is before us, I'm seeking an amendment that would move the resolution honoring the life and service of Mr. Harold Harris. Let's make that the new number 1, and all other numbers will correspond accordingly.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman, that we move up this item. It's essentially a hybrid of a special presentation and a resolution, hence we want to cluster it with our special presentations this evening. Hearing no further discussion, Roll call on adoption of the amendment to the proposed agenda. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Now we're back to the main motion, the agenda as amended. Are there any additional amendments, changes, clarifications? Hearing none further, roll call on adoption of approval of the agenda as amended. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The agenda is adopted. We'll proceed accordingly. Is there a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman. This week's consent agenda includes last week's City Council meeting minutes. With that, roll call on adoption. Clerk Doyle.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. We are now at item number 1. Could I please have a motion to adopt the resolution honoring the life of Mr. Harold Harris?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. Councilman Rutherford will read the resolution. We will have reflections on Mr. Harris, including a presentation from Mr. Stewart, and then debate the motion further. With that, Councilman Rutherford, you have the floor.
Whereas Mr. Harold Hank Harris was a Pontiac resident for many decades and was highly involved with members of our Pontiac community throughout the Oakland County for many years. And whereas Mr. Harris was an active part of many civic, social, and philanthropic endeavors throughout the years, including his voluntary service on multiple City of Pontiac boards and commissions. And whereas Mr. Harris passed away March the 6th, 2023 at the age of 60, which is a tragic loss for his family and our entire community. Through his amazing legacy will surely endure. Now therefore be resolved that the Pontiac City Council and the Pontiac Mayor Tim Grimer hereby acknowledges the life and legacy of Mr. Harold Harris and mourns his passing. And further resolved that the Pontiac City Council, the Mayor of Pontiac, and the entire City of Pontiac extends our deepest sympathies to the family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues of Mr. Harris. And further resolved, we celebrate the life and profound impact of Mr. Harold Harris and salute his admirable services to the City of Pontiac.
Very good. All right. With that, the motion is now before us. We'd like to give the floor to Mr. Quincy Stewart to offer reflections on Mr. Harris's life and legacy.
It's not on, sir. No, sir.
Is it on now? All right. Tonight, I'd like to, duty calls to honor one of our own and a very close and dear friend of over 30 years, Harold Harris. Recently, for those who follow me on Facebook, read my article on Harold, and I entitled it, Heroes Don't Always Wear Capes. Growing up, at least in my era, being 65 and older, most heroes are in cartoons, on television shows, westerns. They all wore capes. Their grandiosity in full display, their good deeds were heralded far and wide. Yet in the real world, many of our real heroes do not only wear capes or any other regalia, but rarely are given nor seek any limelight for their deeds heralded for all to see. They go about living a life of service to others, doing the off-camera, day-to-day grunt work of making life better for their fellow human beings. That was Harold. Beyond the cliche, he actually did feed the hungry and the homeless. He did various levels of community work in various capacities, including his work on the Tax Review Board and all the other boards that he worked on in the city, working with State Representative Clarence Phillips, and he even ran for state rep. Harold and I go way back before he lost his wife and became a paraplegic in 1993 in a horrific traffic accident right over here by the Schwinn Bicycle Shop on Perry and Wide Track. Still a dangerous intersection. Harold is a hero to me because not one single time in the 29 years that he was confined to a wheelchair did I ever hear him bemoan, rue, complain, nor whine about his challenge. He had a disability that never disabled him. He is a hero to me because he lived life with a zest, a gusto that many of us able-bodied folk couldn't or wouldn't. The doctors gave him less than 10 years of life after the accident, yet he bested their predictions by 20. He traveled, laughed, served others with passion, and gave of his resources to ease the pain, load, and suffering on those in distress. And though no angel by any means, like any of us in here, he had a compassionate and altruistic spirit. He sat in a wheelchair, but he was a stand-up man. He was my good friend. We had lots of great conversations about our people and the problems we face as black men. We cracked countless jokes, ate good, drank good. And I had fun with his brothers and sisters. He and we had some great memories. I am here tonight for the record. I am here to recognize my dear brother who has passed on. May his memory be a blessing.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilman Rutherford, you have the floor.
Absolutely. Mr. Harris was a pillar in this community, but he also was one of the realest people you ever met. His yes was his yes. His no was his no, and there was no in between. And so when I was asked to sing at his funeral, the first song I had got through it, I was fine, but the second song, I just remember the speeches that he would give you to the side, or how he would check your behavior before he would check you privately before somebody else could check you publicly. And that's what I admired about him. He never put you on airs, and when he aired you out, he did it between you and him. And I respect that. And that's what real leadership does. Real correction is done privately so that you can be successful publicly. And so I will always remember him for his candor, his honesty, and he was probably the realest person I've ever met thus far who had a disability, but that disability did not define him. So I'm very honored to know him and to call him a friend. Thank you.
Further discussion. Mayor Grimo.
Well, I certainly can't top the comments from Quincy and Councilwoman Rutherford. It really sums up Harold perfectly, and he was truly, as many of you know personally, and as all of you have gathered from the comments that have been made, he was truly a remarkable, remarkable man. I knew Harold initially through his many leadership roles in the city, but I ended up working with him more closely when I became a state representative. And he, like so many others throughout our state, and so many of us in the legislature at the time, worked and fought very hard to protect the no-fault benefits that protect people who, or used to protect people that were in car accidents in this state. And less than a year after I left the legislature, the state legislature gutted those benefits, unfortunately, and they did so on the premise of empty promises from insurance companies that it would bring down insurance rates, which, if you've been paying attention the past few years since 2019 when those benefits were gutted, obviously has not happened in any meaningful or appreciable way. So I just want to say that Harold was a truly remarkable person. He's somebody who made a difference in countless lives here in the city of Pontiac and was incredibly involved in the community in many ways. And it's been said many times that he did not let his disability define him, and that's true. But he's a reminder when we think about everything he did in this community, and by the way, he happened to be a paraplegic, it's a reminder that none of us have any valid excuse not to roll up our sleeves, get out there in the community, and make a difference every single day.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion before us. I first met Mr. Harris when I was a teenager attending Oakland University. He was the campaign manager that year for the current state representative at the time, Clarence Phillips, And of course, Oakland University being in the state representative's district at the time, wanted to connect with those students that were active on campus. And I would have never guessed, having known him for 20 years, until Mr. Stewart shared it tonight, I did not realize that he had not always been in that wheelchair, because he was did not phase him. It did not impact him in a way. He was very active. He was very strong. He was very committed. And I just want to say that all of us are here for far too long, far too short, and we don't know how long we have. I was shocked about his passing, and shocked that he was only 60. And but for his time here, he made a very, very big impact. And in part, we are taking this action because he selflessly gave to all of us, serving on volunteer boards and commissions in the city that makes our local government run. I can remember through the decades when I look through old archival information, Harold Harris's name comes up over and over again in terms of voluntarily serving on boards and commissions that are not glamorous, but that need to happen for us to function as a city and make things happen as citizens. So we salute him for that, but much more broadly, we salute him for the life that he led and the positive impact he had on countless Pontiac residents. Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the resolution. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted, and the legacy and good work of Harold Harris will be added to the history books and the records of the city of Pontiac now and forevermore. We are now at the special presentation, the construction update for Woodward Avenue and South Boulevard intersection. We give the floor to Mayor Grimal.
Thank you, President McGinnis. Work has just started to begin, preliminary work has just started to begin on a construction project that we've been talking about at these meetings for a long time. City Council earlier this year voted to enter into an agreement to allow this construction work to proceed. And I know that some lanes are going to begin being closed next week. So we wanted to make sure that we were informing the community ahead of time about these lane closures and about the overall timeline of the construction project. It's certainly going to cause headaches to all of us as we commute through the city. And I know that the nature of these city council meetings and of these special presentations is such that it's hard to really get questions asked and answered. So this is a preliminary opportunity to get the word out to the community and obviously for city council to ask questions. But we are planning a community forum to make sure that people have a full opportunity to ask questions, to get answers about this project. And that's going to occur on Thursday, April 6th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Bowen Center. So if you have questions, and you may not even have questions until the construction really starts in earnest next week, but whenever you have questions, concerns, feel free to come on out on Thursday, April 6th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Bowen Center to have a more robust conversation. But for tonight's purposes, I want to turn it over to our DPW Director, Al Cooley, to kick things off, and we've got a couple of representatives from MDOT here as well. I do want to emphasize that this is an MDOT project. Woodward Avenue, M1, is its state highway designation, is a Michigan Department of Transportation road. So this is not a city project, it's an MDOT project, and that's why we have representatives from MDOT here this evening. So without further ado, Director Cooley.
Good evening, Council. Just wanted to give a quick update on the scope of the project, just to remind everybody, like the mayor said, back in January, Council had approved us to a contract for us to work with MDOT for the redesign of the construction of Woodward Avenue at South Boulevard. This intersection has proven to be extremely hazardous, leading to accidents and fatalities for motors and pedestrians. The redesign of this intersection will stop left turns at that directly at that intersection, instead requiring drivers to perform the Michigan left
in all directions, modernize the traffic signals, as has been previously done with several other city intersections where there'll be crosswalks and that put there as well. It'll also alter the southbound lanes of Woodward Avenue to allow us to widen that median for the left turn to be turned on the north side of South Boulevard there. So Woodward will no longer be a straight run across the front of M1 concourse there. It'll kind of veer into M1's property a little bit and then come back out so that median can be widened for that turnaround. Next slide. Some of the specific construction includes the U-turn construction, earthwork, embankment and sub-base work, storm sewer and drainage, hot mix asphalt, concrete curb and gutters, signal upgrades, and traffic maintenance work. Next slide. There's traffic restrictions out there. There will be restrictions that will affect motorists in that area. Southbound Woodward will be completely closed to traffic at the railroad crossing south of the Woodward Loop starting March 27th. And that, like I said, that'll be between the railroad crossings and South Boulevard on the southbound lanes. Northbound Woodward will remain open with one lane of traffic closed, 2 through lanes open. Delays are expected during morning and afternoon drive times, and access into businesses will be maintained. Next slide. Timeline for the project dates for this redesign are, they started some preliminary mobilization on 3/13 of 23. 3/27 to 5/26 of 23 will be the full closure of southbound Woodward from the railroad tracks to South Boulevard. 7/30 of 23, the road will be fully open to traffic. 11/15 of 23, all road and traffic signal work will be completed. And then spring of 24, there'll be some tree planting out there. Summer 24 and 25 will be watering the trees that are out there. Next slide. Quit again? Okay. The project costs, this project will be paid primarily through MDOT safety funding. It's based in competitive applications and is specifically designed for providing safer roads and intersections as well as efficient roadway corridors. This project goes through the MDOT bidding process for awards and funding. The total project cost is $3,886,000. Like I said, this work is being done with the federal safety funds that MDOT has received. That federal aid amount is $3,497,400. The balance of that is $388,600, which is split between the state and the city of Pontiac. The Pontiac's portion that we're required to pay is 12.5%, or $48,600 is what we're contributing to this project. And that will be billed to the city based on the project as the project progresses. And this will be paid from the funds from the 22-23 major road funds that we already budgeted. As I mentioned, if you're passing through this area, if you're passing through, you'll see that the work has already begun. We have MDOT project manager Jeff Pitt and project engineer Brian Sarkella with Row Professional Services here tonight at my request. And Jeff and Brian have offered to answer any questions you may have on particular MDOT portions. Now I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, for having us tonight. Last Thursday, on my drive home from work, we were thrown a little bit of a curveball. So we weren't planning on having the full closure of southbound Woodward start until beginning of June, and it was going to be closed all of June and July. Our contractor contacted us and requested to move those dates up. We also met with the M1 concourse along with this, and we think that it's a good plan to go ahead and start the full closure April 27th. This will allow us to complete the work earlier, to have less impact long-term on the city, and really gets into tries to get the major impacts, especially to the M1 concourse, because all of that work is right in front of their main driveway. It gets that hopefully done before Memorial Day weekend. So currently, that's our plan, is to have southbound open before Memorial Day, weather permitting, and hoping that we don't find anything in the ground that we weren't expecting to.
All right, with that, we'll open up for questions and feedback. Councilman Rutherford, followed by Councilman Parker.
Okay, 2 questions. Good evening. I hear you say you've informed the word about the M1 portion. What about the neighborhoods and the community? How are they going to be How are they going to be informed?
Yep, so we've had message boards out since Monday notifying of that. We have a press release that will be coming out tomorrow. We have been in contact, hospitals. We've been trying to reach out. We reached out through through the Department of Public Works office to help get that word out.
I was never told any of this. So the reason why I'm asking, that's my district. And so there are people that live in my district that are here, they're just hearing of this, so they're going to be concerned about this, how they're going to get to work, the school routes, things of that nature. So y'all have to do a better job of telling the neighborhood so that we can all be informed. So I get that's who you told, but in future, if you could tell the council people that's in that district so that we could tell our people, that'd be appreciated. The other question is, how y'all going to make sure that the mediums are not only concrete only? So that's an MDOT question. What about the greenery side of it?
Yep. So the medians will stay grass as they are today. Okay. So we'll have a little bit that's concrete because we know that trucks sometimes turn short and will drive across the nose of our medians. So there'll be a little bit of concrete there, but the rest will be grass. And then we're also replanting the trees that were cut down in the median to facilitate the work that we're doing out there.
Okay.
Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President. My question really is, obviously, South Boulevard leads is the feeder to the Trinity Health Hospital. So have we notified them that all that's taking place and have they made their adjustments?
Correct, yes. We had been in contact with them previously when we thought that the full closure, well, we knew that the project was starting now anyway, so we'd been in contact with them to coordinate, and we had also been in contact with them, letting them know that the full closure was going to be taking place. Like I said, we thought in June and July, and Friday, before the official decision was made, we were reaching out to as many people as we could to let them know that this would potentially be coming up, and then yesterday was full court press, reaching out to everybody to know that that decision had been officially made and was moving forward. We were waiting on our contractor to tie up, confirm a few loose ends that they had on their side to make sure that they could move forward with that schedule.
Okay. And you said the closure starts on April 27th, but the handout says March.
No, May 27th, or not May 20th. It's going to be March 27th. So it's next Monday. In the morning, we will be starting to put that closure up.
Okay. Is it going to be closed roughly about 3 to 4 months, correct?
No, it will be fully closed, southbound only, between the railroad tracks and the north side of South Boulevard. It'll be closed for approximately 60 days. 60 days is what we have in our contract. Like I said, based on us not having terrible weather, I think everybody wishes that winter would leave us already. I know I'm tired of seeing snow, but we're moving forward and plan on having that done in the 60 days per our contract.
Okay, and I noticed that on your contacts, there's no phone numbers. Is that?
We will get contact phone numbers through the mayor's office and DPW through to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilwoman James.
Yeah, with the, as you know, the South Boulevard Bridge is already closed, which has posed some unusual problems for that area, especially those people who are trying to turn left there at Woodward. What I'm wondering is, are you going to post physical signs? There should be physical signs posted on both sides, the south side and the north side, explaining what are the alternate routes. What are going to be the alternate routes here, given that the Boulevard Bridge, that's shut down as well?
Yep. So our posted detour is M59 to Telegraph to Square Lake Road. Our posted detours require us to post for truck movements. That being said, based on the previous work that was done at the railroad tracks, I expect a lot of the local residents will use Rapid to Franklin back to South Boulevard to get back to Woodward as the local alternative. We don't sign those because I don't want to encourage traffic to go through neighborhoods or through other areas that aren't under our jurisdiction. But logically, that's the way that we saw them last time, and I would expect that there will be a fair amount of traffic that goes that way again this time.
But there will be something posted, because, you know, if you're driving through and you're not really familiar that much with Pontiac, and something is closed, and you're like, well, how do I, and if there's nothing posted, someone who is not that familiar with the city can really, you know, end up lost.
Yep. No, and there will be like I said, there will be signage
Suggested
of that detour route over across M59 to Telegraph, Square Lake to Woodward, you know, to get them where they need to go. But everybody knows that there are better, you know, likely much quicker alternatives to get from point A to point B. You know, but at the same time, I don't want to stand here and tell everybody to use, you know, other roads that aren't under our jurisdiction.
Councilman Rutherford for a second time.
So, maybe you're not aware that Franklin is supposed to be getting repaired, and Rapid has potholes the size of Earth, like meteors. So that's how that route is already dangerous as is. Isn't the city? I guess I yield this to the mayor. Can you explain to me how the neighborhood it wouldn't be least effective when you're working on Franklin? If I'm not mistaken, am I mistaken? Are y'all not working on Franklin this year?
We are working on Franklin, but I believe, and I'll want to bring up Mr. Cooley, Director Cooley, but I believe that work's not going to start until July, which will obviously be after the end of May when southbound Woodward reopens up.
Okay, and then the other
is that accurate, Director Cooley?
That work will actually start most likely late July, early August. So we're hoping that these two projects one's going to be ending, and the next one's going to be starting.
So I yield to the mayor again. Can't the city put up signage so that the neighborhood people can know what routes they can take? Can't we do that instead of so that they're informed? Can we not do that?
Yeah, I think we'll want to coordinate that with MDOT, but yes is the short answer. We could put up some signage. I think we want to make sure that the signage isn't confusing to people. If MDOT has signage saying, hey, take these state roads, and we're putting up signage saying take these city roads, that could be a formula for a lot of confusion. So we can certainly explore all the options. I think what's most likely is that those who are from Pontiac are going to know some of the routes that involve city roads like Franklin, whereas it's going to be people who are passing through the city from outside the city who are going to take the state roads. So whether we want to provide two sets of signage that are confusing when the local residents will probably figure out the more efficient routes anyway is something we'll have to talk through. But it's certainly something that we could do, but we'll want to make sure it doesn't just add to confusion out there.
Thank you.
Could I speak on that?
Sure, Director Cooley.
I would caution against doing that signage to show the detour route as being Rapid and Franklin, because that's going to invite a lot of the truck traffic that carries Woodward into our local streets, which, like you have said, are already in poor condition. We don't want to add to that by adding more of the truck traffic that are coming off the MDOT roadways. Like the gentleman from MDOT stated, they do their detour routes to keep people on the state-funded roadways and the state-owned roadways. So I think the signage, we would want to keep that so the truck traffic and the larger traffic goes on them state roads. And then, as the mayor had said, most of the local residents will know to take the other roads.
Well, I must say, this ruins my next 2 months. My commute will be obliterated.
Yep.
And I think to Councilwoman Rutherford's point, it's not necessarily about posting about detours for local roads. The residents that live in proximity to that major work need to know. They deserved a heads up. We know we're now, 5.5 days out. So it's upon, your opportunity and your challenge to communicate with the residents effectively through the most effective means. If it's not signs, great, but think about other ways that many residents of our city can, I think it might warrant, although no one's a fan of robocalls, it might warrant an automated call to every household in the city of Pontiac so that their commute on those first few days isn't them learning about that closure or their route to take their child to school or go to the hospital. So I would definitely encourage a full court press. We recognize that this is a state project, not a city project, but this will have a really direct impact on the quality of life for thousands of Pontiac residents. I would state we should not hope that those projects don't coincide. They should not in any way coincide where we have Franklin under construction while we have southbound Woodward closed, because that will probably be a recipe for even further paralysis. We already have one arm tied behind our back, and you don't have to even speak to it. Just know that this council person will be very aggressive if that scenario happens. I know you're juggling contractors and you want to get it when you can, but we are already paralyzed on the east and south side because of the MLK Bridge closure through no fault of anyone in this room. But we do have members of State Representative Brenda Carter's staff here. Do not be surprised if you start getting heightened phone calls from Pontiac and residents or Pontiac employees. It was hard enough already when southbound Woodward's closed. It's going to be bananas. And so if we then, once we have both arms tied behind our back, start cutting off our own leg with some Franklin Road action, of which I fully support that project happening, it's just that the timing of those very delicate closures is important. So that's my immediate feedback. It will put even more of a microscope on the fact that the MLK Bridge closure has a really severe and direct impact on the quality of life for Pontiac residents, but also people that work in Pontiac, and this is going to be rough. And we are awaiting a verdict from the state of Michigan or some other funding entity that will allow for this bridge to be repaired. Director Cooley, could you give us a ballpark figure? We know the engineers have stated that there is no Band-Aid opportunity, there is no, let's slice this section out and then we can have something going for a few more years. The deteriorated state that the inspectors found out this summer is far too advanced, and a full replacement of that bridge is required so that the community is aware of, it's not that we don't want to do it, it's that the price tag is so insane that we must have state or federal resources to ensure this major artery can be reconnected once more. And it does go over an active rail line. It's not a dormant rail lines underneath that bridge. Those trains are still running, which adds even more complexity. But Director Cooley, can you help the community know what the price tag is?
Yeah, we're looking somewhere in the $10 to $12 million range to a full replacement of that bridge.
So that's big money, and that's why you don't already have a bridge replaced. But it is a serious matter that is only going to be all the more painful because of the important and safety-enhancing work. The residents have wanted to see Woodward and South Boulevard resolved for some time now, so we're grateful that that project can happen, but it's going to be painful to get to that positive outcome. Councilman Nicholson for the first time.
I know there's been some talk of reconfiguring the I-75 entrance off of Square Lake Road too, and the alternative routes that they mentioned were coming up through Pontiac and heading over 59 to 75. So I want to make sure too that they're not doing any sort of closures in that area that would coincide, just because you'll be sending far more traffic north.
Yes, I can speak to that. No, there will not be any closures on Square Lake with those ramps at the current time going along with that. And I believe, I'm not directly involved with that one, but I believe we are looking at not closing those ramps now based on public feedback and information that we had received with our public meeting. I don't guarantee that that's accurate, but that's my understanding.
Well, some intel is better than no intel, so we appreciate you going on a limb and sharing that with us. Any for Councilman James?
Can we do a resolution as part of this to ask the administration, direct the administration to do a physical notification to residents about these closures?
I think that's appropriate. What we'll do is we'll just conclude the special presentation. We'll do a motion to suspend the rules, and then we'll do a resolution, take that action.
She took it out my mouth, so that's what I was gonna say. Good looking.
Mayor Grimal.
Yeah, I can just tell you that you're welcome to do a resolution, but we take this very seriously. I learned about this, as you heard, they weren't planning to do this project for another couple months in terms of the lane closures. And so I learned that these lane closures were happening this coming week, last Wednesday or Thursday, and immediately made sure that we brought this before council to at least begin the process of notifying council and of getting the word out to the public. So yes, we will be aggressively getting the word out.
Very good. Any further discussion or questions on this special presentation? All right, with that, Councilwoman James, would you like to make a motion to suspend the rules to take up a resolution that wasn't already on the agenda as approved?
Yes, I make a motion to suspend the rules so that we can do an motion that is not on the agenda currently.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman James and supported by Councilman Rutherford that we suspend this meeting's rules for this particular purpose, for taking up a resolution that had not already been on our approved agenda. Any clarification or discussion needed on the motion before us? It's specifically about suspending the rules so we can take up a resolution now. Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the motion to suspend the rules. Clerk Doyle.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
All right, that motion carries. We've suspended the rules for this specific purpose. We're now taking up a resolution that I will write right now. Whereas the state of Michigan will be undertaking construction on southbound Woodward Avenue between Rapid Street and South Boulevard from late March to late May 2023. And whereas all lanes will be closed during those months, potentially impacting Pontiac residents and those that work in the city of Pontiac. Now, therefore be it resolved, the Pontiac City Council hereby requests Mayor Tim Grimal and the administration to take concerted efforts to notify all residents and businesses in the city of Pontiac so that they are aware of this serious obstacle to Pontiac commuters. And further resolved, we acknowledge that Mayor Grimal has already committed to those efforts, and we look forward to partnering with him on getting the word out as much as possible so that all Pontiac residents and businesses are fully apprised, period. Is there such a motion?
Moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford and seconded by Councilman Goodman to move that resolution, which has just been verbally generated. Any discussion on the motion before us? Thank you, Councilwoman James, for flagging that. Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the resolution. Clerk Doyle.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. And thank you very much for the Michigan Department of Transportation staff that was here this evening. We are now at our final special presentation about CNS Healthcare Resources and Services. We're joined by some of the leadership team of CNS. They did provide us a PowerPoint presentation. The technology gods have frowned upon the infrastructure in this room, so the PowerPoint projector is not alive at the moment. But we know that you, through resilience and talent, will be able to give us the goods. And if you'd like to give the hard copies to the clerk, then he can distribute to council members. Without further ado, welcome to the city of Pontiac, of which you're no strangers, but welcome to City Hall, and we look forward to this evening's presentation.
Good evening to this honorable body and to the citizens of Pontiac. My name is Darnell Boynton. I serve as the Chief Corporate Compliance Officer and General Counsel at CNS Healthcare. And on behalf of our President and CEO, Michael Garrett, we want to take this opportunity to just say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be here, to just kind of tout CNS Healthcare. We believe that we are the premier behavioral health care organization here in Michigan. We have our roots here in Pontiac, and we just want to let you all know how grateful we are that we've been able to serve some of the citizens of Pontiac over the years. As you may be aware, CNS Healthcare is a CCBHC. We get talked about all the time about our acronyms, but CCBHC stands for Certified Community Behavioral Healthcare Center. And what that means, and I have to take a moment just to say thank you in her absence to Senator Debbie Stabenow, who, because of her work and advocacy, we are one of a very special designated group of healthcare provider organizations in the state of Michigan that has this specific designation. And why it is important, it's important because it allows us to revolutionize the way we offer behavioral health care services, especially here in the Pontiac area. Through the CCBHC, we are able to serve individuals regardless of where they stay, and more importantly, regardless of their ability to pay. So it doesn't matter whether or not they have insurance, we are able to serve them and meet their behavioral health care needs where they need to be met. And with that being said, just a little bit more about us, and that is CNS Healthcare is a private, nonprofit, again, certified community behavioral health care clinic that provides mental health and substance use disorder services to more than 11,000 people across Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties annually. Our person-centered approach, we identify, support, and promote the overall health of children, adolescents, adults, and older adults. CNS Healthcare provides an array of behavioral health care, community-based services and supports for children ages 0 to 17, adults, and older adults. And we believe that mental health is a vital part of overall health and wellness for adults, children, and families. Our Pontiac location is located on North Perry Street. We also have a clubhouse on Elizabeth Lake Road, where we are able to service the citizens of Pontiac with what we call a work-ordered day, where they are able to come in and receive a complete work-ordered day centered around finances and culinary skills, and they produce wonderful lunches on a daily basis that they sell for only $1.50. They're extremely nutritious, and we invite you at any time to participate in any of their culinary acts. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Marcy Johnson, who will, further taunt the services that CNS Healthcare provides.
Thank you for this opportunity, Mayor, City Council members, and citizens of Pontiac. Again, we're so excited to be here. We just want to make sure marketing is key to ensure that you are aware of the resources available to citizens of Pontiac. Most specifically, we're speaking to all of you. We want to make sure that you're aware of our services, where our clinics are, and to reach out to us. I want to make sure we go over all the services that are available here locally, and then we can talk about even in other areas of the Tri-County area as well. For adult services, we have outpatient therapy, we have case management services, we have peer support services. We truly believe at CNS Healthcare in hiring those with lived experience in partnership with the professionals we have of the clinicians, the social workers, the counselors, hiring those with lived experience, whether it be parents, our parent support partners, whether it be our peers with lived experience, or whether it be our recovery coaches, those that have gone through the journey of recovery with substance use disorder services. So peer services are integral to what we believe in and part of our mission. We have assertive community treatment, which is an intensive in-home program. So we have a whole entire ACT team comprised of nurses, therapists, case managers, peers that come to the home to meet the person wherever they're at in the community, to ensure stabilization within the community, to avoid hospitalization, to avoid any out-of-home care. So that program is near and dear to our heart to maintain individuals in the community, in their place of residence. Behavioral health home really focuses on those that have the combined chronic disease or primary health care condition in conjunction with a mental health condition. And so, you know, we have special behavioral health teams, again, that are very community-based and focus on meeting both the medical and behavioral health, mental health issues. Individual placement and support. These are services geared towards employment services. We have staff that are working with individuals to develop resumes, to go out and identify sustainable jobs that make a livable wage, and that's the focus. Those are the goals, and that's key for our program. We have a lot of success with that program, and we want to ensure that you're aware of that resource. And as Darnell referenced, our Visions Clubhouse and also Fair Drop-In Centers. So we have two services for, you know, Clubhouse members where people come in, as Darnell said, have a work order day and really have socialization, wellness and exercise, and food prep, and as he said, you know, meals for very low cost and very healthy. In terms of our children's services, we're going to be expanding and opening even a specific center for children in Pontiac. Currently, right now, we're under renovation, and so we're serving children out of our location on Perry Street. The children's clinic will be there as well, but it's going to be a separate office clinic right next door. And so that we're targeting that for around June. But the services that are available, majority of our services are in the community, but our presence of having a clinic with the prescribers, nurses, doctors, our staff, you know, to have meetings at our clinic if needed. But most of our services, again, are provided in the community, in the home, in the place that is most comfortable and convenient and accessible for those that we serve. And so for children's services at the moment is outpatient therapy, parent support partners, and school-based services. We're currently, we truly believe in collaboration multiplies impact, and our partnership with schools is key. We have staff clinicians that are embedded in the school in partnership with school counselors, school social workers, and are truly there for the benefit of the children and their families. And what's nice about that is, you know, prevention services, but if there is an identified, you know, more significant need, we have a local clinic there on Perry Street, and we also have services for the family as well. Currently, as an agency across the Tri-County area, we're in 27 schools, but locally here, right now, we're embedded in Arts Technology Academy of Pontiac, a charter school, and we're also in conversations with other schools in the district to ensure they're aware of our services, because as Darnell said, between grants and our federal designation status, we want to ensure that the resources are known to those in the community, to the schools, because it's at no cost to the schools. And again, we're really here to serve those that are uninsured, underinsured, or just underserved, period. So we want to make sure that there are no barriers, no access to care, and that we're, you know, in the place that's most convenient and accessible to children and families. Darnell went over our local clinic here on Perry Street. I'll keep you posted when we're opening. Darnell is my partner in this with the team, opening up the new children's clinic on Perry Street, so we'll make sure you're aware of that grand opening, and please, we want you to come. For now, we are, you know, still servicing children and families out of the Perry Street current clinic and in the community. So we're just honored to have the opportunity to talk with you, make sure that you're aware of a valuable resource for your community, and we really want to be a valuable partner in any way possible. We had on the slide our contact information. I'm going to leave that here so that you have it. It's cnshealthcare.org, and then there's info@cnshealthcare.org, and then we have an 800 number, 800-615-0411. But if you any of ways that you can reach us here, we have staff that are available to answer your questions, to schedule an intake right there, provide additional information, whatever that would be. We also have teams that come out and speak at various venues that you would identify, schools, churches, wherever we can to ensure, that we can get the word out there that we're here and as a resource to the community. So thank you again for the opportunity. Look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you. Questions? Councilwoman Rutherford.
Good evening. Do you have a crisis line? And if so, what's that number?
So there's not a specific crisis line. This is our phone number. We have on-call, we have after-hours line, and we also have staff that are there to answer the immediate need. There isn't a crisis per se that would go right over to Common Ground, but we have staff, because we're an outpatient community-based services provider, so we'll walk someone through the process if there's a true crisis, immediate crisis, but we're there to support then, the aftercare, the linkage, once that immediate crisis is over. But for those that are in our care, they have access to this number, they have access to their care team, phone numbers to their case manager, therapist. So the crisis system, once you're in our system, is there and accessible 24/7. Those calling, as a new intake or person served to our agency will walk you through the process to get you connected with our services.
And my follow-up question is, what's the timeline for when people call to actually be served?
So we are under requirement for to schedule an intake appointment within 14 days, but we do honor same-day access. If someone walks in, we have an intake staff available. We have office coverage to be able to meet the need right there. And so we are always, even striving to do same-day access. What was it?
Thank you.
Oh, good. And Darnell was going to clarify, please.
Councilman Rutherford, if I can also just clarify something. If anyone calls that 1-800 number, we have people on staff 24/7, 7 days a week, that if they are in crisis, whoever answers that call will be able to get them the help that they need immediately. So while we don't have a dedicated crisis line, that same number, that 1-800 number that Marcy gave out, will suffice for whatever need that person may have at that time.
Thank you for your clarity.
Councilman Nicholson.
On some of the placement-based programming, like vocational and clubhouse, do you have openings now?
We do. So you would call the same intake number, and then through that assessment, an intake assessment, the need, for whatever services we have available or based on need, the linkage will be there immediately following. So yes, we do currently.
Thank you.
Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President. My question, a couple of questions actually. Do you provide transportation? And certainly the presentation you did here today was awesome, but how are we getting it to the people that in the public? How are we marketing your presentation?
Sure. I'll let
to
you
the
do transportation.
Yeah, man, I'll let you. So you asked about transportation. Transportation is one of the departments that I oversee at CNS Healthcare, and this is one of the more proud areas that I like to talk about, because CNS Healthcare is one of the only providers of behavioral healthcare services that provide transportation. Because of the leadership of Michael Garrett, he thought it important to provide transportation so that there would be no barrier to getting someone the services that they need. So if you need to be picked up, we'll come pick you up wherever you are. One of Marcy's employees, who is a resident of Pontiac, I believe, James. You all may know James Patton. He's in the community all the time. James Patton will drive to California and pick you up and bring you back to an office here, so that we can serve those citizens. So to answer your question, we do provide transportation.
And marketing, how are you getting it to the folks that they know it? Because one of the things I'm finding out is Pontiac has a lot of services that nobody knows about.
I know. And we're always looking for additional ways to market social media. We have newsletters that go out, speaking presentations. We're always open. We try to make sure. We were just walking in and we're like, I don't think we're listed on their media board out here. So we're always looking. We have a outreach and a marketing department. They're always looking for ways to make sure our information is there. We have commercials on what's the local station we were on. We did commercials to make sure that, you know, the community is aware of our services. So we try to saturate in whatever way we can, but we know there is just not enough ways to get the information out there. Speaking, you know, here, any forums that we have, we make sure that we get the information out.
And my final question was that you did say either one or both of you were available to do district CDC meetings if available, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
And then just one final thing, as a part of our governing board, we have a number of Pontiac citizens, Lucy Payne, Ben Anderson. They are all, matter of fact, I believe it was Lucy Payne who, in one of our program meetings, said, I need for you all to go to Pontiac and present so that they know that, you know, we have services that can be provided to the citizens in that community. So we are here because Pontiac has advocates all over the place, and more importantly, at CNS Healthcare.
Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, thank you very much for being here this evening. That concludes the special presentation section. We are now at recognition of elected officials. Would representatives from State Representative Brenda Carter's staff like to take the podium?
Thank you, and good evening for having me. My name is Jonathan Wertheimer, and I am the Policy Director for State Representative Brenda Carter. I'm also joined by Damiana Jedi, Rep. Carter's Director of Constituent Services. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. We're both here to invite everyone in the city of Pontiac, listening at home, here in the audience, and all of House District 53 to Representative Carter's upcoming income tax town hall, which is going to be held this Friday, March 24th, from 2 to 3:30 at the Ruth Peterson Community Center. Rep. Carter is going to be joined by Dan Arnold Mellarmino of the IRS, Marshall Hunt, who is with the Michigan Association of Certified Public Accountants, and Oakland County Commissioner Angela Powell. And they will be discussing any and all questions that you might have regarding your income taxes. We have a very important income tax filing deadline coming up. And if you're like me, who hasn't exactly gotten around to filing yet, this would be the town hall to go to. So we hope to see you all there. And again, thank you for having me. March 24th, 2 to 3:30, Ruth Peterson.
Thank you. Are there any other current elected officials in their office that are looking to have the floor? As a point of personal privilege, there are now multiple seats in the middle. Don't hesitate if you'd like to claim a seat and make your experience here all the more relaxing. We are now at agenda address. President Pro Tem Carrington, are there any requests this evening?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. First, we have Gail Spalding. Mr. Norman Elam. Okay. Ms. Chris Elam. Mr. Ed Dow. Mrs. Curl Dow. Okay. Ms. Jen Jelinski. Okay. Dr. Deidre Waterman.
Point of order, can you please remind people that they can't go through that door, please?
Good evening. Couple things on the agenda. I see after 7 months of not having a finance director, I see you will have a nominee for that. Who hopefully will present. I know our deputy mayor, who's been wearing 2 hats and filling the role as acting finance director, both of which are full-time jobs. So he has gallantly been trying to pull those 2 jobs together. But I know we'll be happy to get the help here to run that finance department, which is one of our most important departments. Just, I know the council had talked a lot a few weeks ago about criteria. And I just happened, that just made me notice that on the resolution for the council to consider to approve the candidate, it says he has a master's degree in finance. But when I read the bio, which is very extensive, He actually has a master's in business administration. So I don't know if that's important to you to make sure that those are alike as we go through that. The other thing I want to talk about briefly, because I know adult use marijuana, bringing it to city, has really consumed a lot of council's attention over the last number of months. And one of the things that's so important is process and protocol. And so one of the things that concerned me was one of the things, the lawsuits that's been brought against the city for $60 million by Rubicon is because the city failed to observe its own protocol. One of the things that the city attorneys have told council is that all zoning map amendments have to originate from the Planning Commission. And we did that 6 different times for medical marijuana, and each one of those had to originate from the Planning Commission. Now, what happened was, Planning Commission did make a recommendation, which needs to be voted up or down. Instead, the council proceeded to do what the attorneys told them you couldn't do. They went ahead and amended the zoning ordinance amendments. So I just am concerned a little bit about the protocol because that tends to make the city liable, and that's why we're in this lawsuit right now. That was because the clerk and the city attorney were opposed in what the protocol should be.
Thank you, Dr. Waterman. Ms. Diane Belsick, okay. Please take the podium out.
It's on.
It's on?
Yeah.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. I am here to speak for myself and to be the voice of the people that signed the petition that could not be here tonight. This petition is signed by all the ethnic groups in the neighborhood. This is a peaceful place where neighbors look out for each other, take care of each other. We can walk in our neighborhoods, kids can ride their bikes, people can walk their dogs. Many of the homes are multi-generational homes where people have told me it was their parents' home, grandparents' home, so on. Many family have other family members, or many households have multiple family members living in the neighborhood, myself included, that my daughter and granddaughter live a block away. There are a lot of seniors in the neighborhood, and they are afraid of what might happen if we bring more low-income housing into the neighborhood for safety and traffic and a lot of different issues. The neighborhood is making a turnaround. There are many homes that received the District 4 Beautification Award this last year, and more people that said that they're striving to reach that themselves this next year. The city of Pontiac has a high number of rentals. This particular neighborhood is making a turnaround where myself, even the people that are around me, there's been approximately 15 homes that over the last couple of years have gone from rentals to privately owned homes. The voters have spoken. 262 people have signed the petition asking the officials to please vote no on the rezoning and vote no on the Carlisle Townhome project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Chuck Johnson. Mr. Larry Jasper.
Thank you, guys. I want to talk about the infrastructure. I understood during our conversation here today that you had a bridge that needed $10 to $12 million in order to repair or fix. I thought that's what the Biden bucks was for. We have $37 million was given to the city of Pontiac for infrastructure development. Why aren't we using it for that bridge? And what about the potholes on the other road and stuff that we have going on in the city? Why aren't we not fixing those potholes with the Biden bucks, the infrastructure, so that citizens don't have to worry about blowing out their tires? Additionally, you are going to be shutting down South Boulevard, and you don't have the bridge going to United Wholesale Mortgage. 8,000 people work there. Where's the traffic going to go, and what's going to affect the surrounding cities? Have you decided to talk to maybe Bloomfield Township? They were willing to go together with you guys in a 425 agreement on Bloomfield Park that was later on given a 35-year tax abatement, that's $2 million a year that could have come to the city of Pontiac. But why aren't we talking to them to see if they might want to get involved? You have a lot of influence in Oakland County. Why aren't we using Oakland County to kind of work along with Bloomfield Township and Pontiac to benefit the whole entire area? When you shut down Woodward, you cause traffic problems everywhere else, not just the city of Pontiac. But none of this is being done, and I don't see why it isn't being done, since you have the money to do it. And I'm sure Bloomfield Township, if I remember right, have a couple $100 million in their coffer. Maybe they might want to contribute to that bridge being fixed so they don't have to worry about additional maintenance on their roads. There's multiple ways to go about doing this, but it's not going to do that. By leaving it shut down, you're hurting the main taxpayers, not just the residential taxpayers, but the commercial taxpayers. United Wholesale Mortgages spend a ton of money in the city and gives the city a huge tax base. Those roads stop those employees from getting to that business. Is this really how you want to do things? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gail Spalding? Will you give it to the clerk, please?
Hello, my name is Gail Spalding. I'm here representing the rezoning for the Old Weaver School and the Carlisle Townhome Project. The business, we have counted 338 properties in that area. 8 are vacant properties. Out of 330 occupied properties, we have passed out the petition with 262 votes on no on the rezoning and no on the Carlisle Townhome Project. There were 16 people that in our petition are going around that approved the proposal, and 14 businesses in the surrounding area that have voted no also. We had 3 undecided people, 4 that didn't speak English, and 160 that were either not home or didn't answer their door. So as a group, majority vote, we are voting no on rezoning and voting no on the development of the Carlisle Townhome Project. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ed Dole?
I'm sorry?
I said thank you, ma'am.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Ed, is it Dole?
Dowd.
Dowd?
Yeah, it's Dowd. My name is Ed Dowd. I live at 370 West Newport in the city of Pontiac. I have lived in Pontiac now 46 years. So I've seen a lot of good, and I've seen a lot of bad, and I've seen a lot of good changes. I've seen a lot of bad changes. But I'm not here for that right now. What I'm here to say is I'm standing in opposition to the rezoning at 204 West New York and the building of the townhouse, the Carlisle Townhouse development. It seems to me that that particular property where Weaver School sits now is rather small to put a 42 apartment or townhome or what kind of a development. It seems like that property is rather small. And I think we were told the last time in the zoning board that there were other properties available that were larger that they could use. The other thing that I'm questioning too is I've seen a number of times now where it looks like the sewer system, they're coming out and digging up. Now, maybe it's because they're sinking and they need to be repaired, but it seems like they're doing an awful lot with manhole covers and the sewer system. I just wonder how much, or will that sewer system handle that development? The other thing is the water lines and such, because some of those water lines that were put in, I don't know that they've been upgraded. If they have, I don't remember seeing it, but maybe they have. And then also, close to the Carlisle project, we also have the crossing, Seville Point, which are low-income apartments. They're probably 3 or 4 blocks away. We also have Woodlake Hills apartments, which are right next to Seville Point, the crossing. And we also have the Baldwin Villas, which are rental properties, and they're down probably 2 or 3 blocks down from where the Weaver School is. And I'm just saying that I don't think that it's a good idea to put that in there.
That does conclude your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Mrs. Carol Dow?
Yes, my name is Carol Dowd. I've lived at my address is 370 West Newport, Pontiac. I've lived in Pontiac all my life. I've lived in the same neighborhood at the same house where my parents lived. Went to Weaver School from kindergarten to 6th grade. I am a no on rezoning from the R1 to R3 at 204 West New York, and no on the Carlisle Townhomes proposal. Going around the neighborhood with the petition, people would say to me, if it would happen, they would move. They don't want more traffic. They said already people go too fast, more blight around. The parking situation when they have other kids with the friends over might be a teenager with more cars, parties, more cars. Some people might stay overnight, more cars. The streets, more traffic will fall apart. The sewer system, the fear of crime, the valuation of their property going down. They were upset not knowing about this whole thing. Mr. Felton said that they put it in the paper, but most people don't get the paper anymore because it's too much money and there's nothing there. So a lot of people probably didn't even see it. They would say we already have enough around the neighborhood that we don't need any more. Do not want low-income housing. One older gentleman told me that he would have to put a fence at the end of a drive. He said he don't want to do that. Another person said they might look good at the beginning, but look what happens through the years. They also said it does not fit into the neighborhood with the houses. Some would say make a park, a garden for people to plant vegetables, build houses that people own that would fit in with the neighborhood. I agree with the neighbors, all in hearty. Also, that other places would fit in better with the master plan. I remember Mark, the planning manager, said that at the last meeting, there's bigger properties for them to build on. Thank you.
Thank you. President McGinnis, that concludes our agenda address.
Thank you. Thank you to all the residents who shared their feedback on the items that we'll be considering. Councilwoman James has a motion to suspend the rules so that way the next item on the agenda considered is the first reading for that ordinance amendment, ZMA 23-001 for 204 West New York Avenue, the rezoning. So Councilman James, your motion is to suspend the rules so that way that's what we consider next.
Yes, Mr. President.
And that was a second from Councilman Nicholson. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. The proposal here is that we reorder the items that we'll consider next, where that rezoning first reading will be what we take up immediately next. Is everyone clear on the motion to suspend the rules proposal? All right, with that, roll call on adoption of the motion to suspend the rules. Clerk Doyle.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We've suspended the rules, so that way we're considering this item first, so that way it doesn't necessarily get bogged down with the other ordinance items that we'll consider as well. Since we know many residents are here that want to hear that first reading. So, is there a motion to consider the resolution acknowledging the first reading of the ordinance amendment?
So moved.
It was moved by Goodman, seconded by?
No, I first, and he
Okay,
seconded.
all right, so it's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman, that we have the first reading. So now we have a motion before us. Anytime we change an amendment, create or change the ordinance as the city of Pontiac, it requires 2 readings by the city council. This is the first reading. So there will be no ultimate vote tonight on whether the rezoning happens, but we will vote to confirm that we've had that first reading, that that's happened. So at the very earliest, this could only be considered and acted on at next week's meeting. The intention and expectation is that the second reading will happen at next week, the March 28th meeting. Our city council meets weekly. So the Planning Commission made a recommendation for this ordinance amendment. So we're talking about ZMA 23-001 to rezone 204 West New York Avenue from R1 family dwelling to R3 multiple family dwelling. And for people's frame of reference, this is the former Frank Weaver School, alternatively a middle school and an elementary school for decades, but closed for decades as well. So we give the floor now to the mayor and administration to give staff information before we have further deliberation on this first reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll mention as a preliminary matter that normally we would use the overhead projector as part of this presentation. As folks noticed earlier, it's not working. I do have new information that apparently it's not working because the fan on the projector is not working. But I wanted to let folks know what the problem seems to be. So with that, Manager Yandrick, why don't you walk council through what the Planning Commission has recommended?
Absolutely. Good evening. I would definitely refer City Council to the memo that was created by the Carlisle Workman firm, and that has no relation to the Carlisle Street or the Carlisle development that's here, that's in your packet. And for the public, this is part of the packet that was published if you wanted to reference that as well. Tonight's request is for a rezoning. The applicant is C.J. Felden from the Community Housing Network, and the request is for a rezoning or a zoning map amendment from R1 to R3. The Weaver School, has its staff's understanding that this has gone downhill in terms of its usability in the last 10 years. There is I believe, a photo in the presentation that I had. I'm not sure if it's in the memo. It's located on approximately 3.8 acres. It's just north of Walden Boulevard and just west of Carlisle Street. So, the zoning district currently is R1. Surrounding the zoning district is R1 with the exception of the properties that are located on Walden, which are zoned C1, which is a local business. So these are businesses such as offices and very light retail that don't have a ton of traffic, but that is abutting the district. So in the presentation, there are 10 standards of approval for a zoning map amendment. Many of these are for City Council to assess the viability of if this rezoning is consistent with the goals, policies, and objectives of the master plan. Is it compatible with the site's physical, geological, hydrological, and environmental features? And evidence the applicant cannot receive a reasonable return on investment, and compatibility with potential uses. So there's a little bit more detail and analysis within the staff report when it comes to these standards. When the planning consultant was doing the finding, the Pontiac master plan from 2014 does have a goal to ensure the residential development and new infill development complements and enhances the character of the existing neighborhoods and have a positive effect on property values. The proposed rezoning was found to be consistent with the master plan and allow for redevelopment of the site, which has been vacant for a while. The zoning category did provide a realistic option from the current R1, which is allowable for the demolition of the building. So as some additional information that staff learned a lot from the neighbors from the public hearing that was held on March 1st at Planning Commission. And, our analysis did not account for some of the neighbors' comments. And while administration and staff had conversations with the applicant to consider conditions of approval, which need to be offered by the applicant. These are similar conditions that we have for Lighthouse later this evening. The applicant considered those, but came back to the city and decided to come for a straight rezoning. So what does that mean? They're requesting a rezoning this evening that, if it were approved, would allow the uses in an R3 zoning district. And this is multiple family zoning. It doesn't necessarily pin into a certain site plan, which is not under review tonight. It doesn't pin in the types of housing. Really, this is giving them the option to zone anything that our zoning code permits in the R3 district. So Planning Commission's recommendation that evening was 5-0 in favor of the rezoning. And obviously, that's a recommendation to City Council, who is the policymaker on these decisions. So my apologies for not being able to show any maps and analysis, but that is my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion before us. Again, this is the first reading. We will have a second reading the week to come that allows additional research and feedback Any discussion on the motion on this first reading? So again, we're talking about 204 West New York Avenue, and the application for the property in pursuing this rezoning, it's asking what the proposed use will be, and Community Housing Network proposes to redevelop the property into Carlisle townhomes. The development will feature 42 1- and 2-bedroom townhome-style rental units in 5 new construction buildings, and will include a community building, leasing office, playscape, and green spaces. An aerial photo of the existing property and representative building elevation are included with the application along with the project narrative. And in terms of stating the reasons for the zoning map amendment sought, the applicant stated, the city and surrounding neighborhood will benefit by approval of the zoning map amendment through turning a long vacant and blighted property into a productive use by providing much-needed housing for approximately 75 to 80 people. The surrounding residents will be minimally impacted by the development with increased traffic from the site's current use, but less than what was present when the property operated as a school. The development will not be detrimental to neighbors' properties and should serve to decrease vandalism and other nuisances. So that was the applicant's reasons for the zoning map amendment, as well as their proposed use. Again, that's Community Housing Network. The property is presently owned by Oakland County. It's on their surplus property. It had not been purchased through their tax foreclosure sale, and so it remained on their surplus property for many years. And any further questions or deliberation? Councilwoman James, you have the floor.
I have a question for planning. Did you consider some of the things that were mentioned were possible sewer and water lines? Was that considered whether or not those lines were adequate for this, to change the zoning? Would that require some additional upgrades to our infrastructure?
It was seen that at roughly 40-some units, that was not large enough to consider at this time. Now, if there would be hundreds of units, that's where a capacity evaluation would be necessary that we would be reviewing. Now, through this process, they'd be reviewed further at a site plan level, but 40-some units is not a significant impact when looking at the overall fabric of the city for the utility.
What about parking? Was parking considered, when you reviewed this?
No site plan was presented to the city, and so we did not review parking for this rezoning request.
That's a good segue. Can you share for the community what are the next steps? This is the proposal for rezoning.
Yep.
This doesn't necessarily be the final determination on what happens with the property.
That is a great question. So tonight's rezoning would require a second reading, and if that was approved, the applicant or a future property owner could come forward with a site plan application to develop the site. And that's where there'd be a little bit more scrutiny when it comes to architecture, to parking, design, layout, and things of that nature.
Councilman Nicholson.
Can you talk about the new zoning category and what types of structures would be permissible if we were to change the zoning?
The most common is allows for multifamily dwelling units, and really the maximum height is 35 feet, but there's not a density requirement that is there. So,
thank you.
Deputy Mayor Stevens.
Just following up on Councilman Nicholson's question. It's currently zoned R1, so can you just tell the residents what that means?
Yep.
Tell the residents what R2, which we're skipping over, means.
Yep.
And then specifically on the R3, as you just said, it's multifamily, can be 35 feet high, and there is no density requirements. Just go a little bit further in depth with an example of what that might look like.
So the current zoning is very consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. The only thing allowed on an individual parcel is one housing unit. So really there are some very restrictions of what that could be. The R2 zoning district, which is not under consideration this evening, is the next intense, and that allows on one parcel there can be a maximum of 2 units, like a duplex. And then the R3 zoning is a little bit more encompassing, that you could have a 3-unit, you could have a 4-unit, you could have an apartment building. And so it gives, and it is a common zoning district within apartment complexes and apartment communities throughout the city. Further discussion? Councilman James.
In general, neighborhoods that are strongly, they're zoned one, for single families. In general, do we tend to change that zoning and make it, multifamily this way? I mean, is that something that is a normal process? Because, generally neighborhoods where you have a high level of home ownership and those kinds of qualities don't tend to want to see multi-units, right in the middle of the neighborhood. So I guess I'm wondering, in terms of our master plan thinking, is this something that we think is a good thing as a city, that you're mixing in with single-family homes, being able to allow for apartments to be built there?
Yeah. That's a great question. So I don't believe at Pontiac's level we've seen a lot of rezonings from R1 to R3, and many of the R1 zoning districts in the city are already established neighborhoods with the grid systems of streets and homes that are there. But I think that is potentially a question going forward to the master plan, which we have not had that conversation yet about, what to do with redevelopment sites. Can the market sustain single-family homes in this site, which was previously a school? It was non-residential. Yes, the school complemented the existing neighborhood that was there until recent years that it's been vacant and, derelict. So it's uncommon that in the city in the past that there's been this type of rezoning, but it is a transitional zoning, and there are a lot of R3 zoning districts adjacent to R1 if City Council wanted to consider that further. So,
Councilman Rutherford?
Yes, so we are aware that there's a housing shortage in our community all around the world, correct?
Correct.
And how long, because I was at the zoning meeting, if they were approved to get the zoning, would the timeline would be for these 42 houses or properties to be built? What's the timeline?
So may I double check that answer?
Sure, no problem.
Okay. We do, to answer the question overall, when it comes to special exceptions and when it comes to variances, there are timelines that certain items need to be built. But to my knowledge, and I just want to double check here, I do not believe there is a time frame the applicant would need to come back and develop a home, develop a proposal.
My other question is, did the applicant ask for a pilot? Did the applicant ask for any tax breaks at this time?
To this date, the city has not received any formal request or indication from the applicant of a financial request to the city specifically.
So that means this applicant will be paying for this to be built. It's not on the taxpayers' dollars,
Yeah.
correct?
I think that's a great question to ask the applicant this evening.
CJ, could you get up there and answer the question for me?
Okay.
Thank you.
Name and address.
My name is CJ Felton. I'm Director of Real Estate Development for Community Housing Network. My Pontiac address is 333 Auburn, where we maintain an office. Councilwoman Rutherford, could you rephrase it? Do you want to know if we have approached the city about any tax abatements?
That is correct.
We have not to this point. We have had informal discussions as late as yesterday about some creative ideas to help make this work, but nothing has been proposed formally.
Okay. Thank you.
Further discussion on this first reading? Hearing no further discussion, what we'll do now is just vote to confirm we've had reading number 1 that allows for it to proceed for a second reading next week. Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the resolution acknowledging the first reading of the ordinance amendment. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. So the first reading has concluded, and it will be on next week's agenda, the Tuesday, March 28th, City Council meeting at 6 p.m. Agenda, address, and public comment requests are certainly welcome from those that wish to speak on this matter as well. All right. We now resume our regular order of the agenda as adopted. We are now at the second reading. Had been postponed from the previous meeting. Adoption of an ordinance to amend the City of Pontiac zoning ordinance to include adult-use marijuana businesses in designated overlay districts and amend Appendix B of the Municipal Code of the City of Pontiac. Amending Article 2, Section 2.103, the zoning map, creating 4 adult-use marijuana overlay districts located in the City of Pontiac, specifically to be known as follows: adult-use marijuana East Walton Overlay District, adult-use marijuana Cesar Chavez Overlay District, adult-use marijuana Downtown Overlay District, and adult-use marijuana Woodward Gateway Overlay District. We give the floor now to administration for latest updates on this item of business.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll turn it over to Planning Manager Yandrick.
So just to recap, last week's meeting, there were 5 motions to consider for City Council to amend the initial reading for the marijuana ordinance that Planning Commission had recommended to City Council. Now, 2 items were approved last week. One of them was the overall boundary of the Woodward Gateway Overlay District, and then the other one was the calculation measurement for buffering, reverting back to the center line, but also taking into account to the entrance to parks. So that has been addressed. There are 3 items before City Council this evening, and these are the same 3 that were under consideration last week. One was to consider 5 retail uses for adult use marijuana retail uses for each of the 4 zoning overlay districts. Another motion was to create, to amend to allow for 1 social equity retailer for each of the overlay districts. And then the last one was to consideration to amend the requirement in the Woodward Gateway Overlay District that a property be located next to an M1 or M2 zoning district. I'm going to, just from your packet, I do have something that Kalfani's going to be passing out to you. There is a slight amendment on the map, and I just want to explain this map real quick. This was a request from City Council. The green area is identifying the Woodward Gateway Overlay District that is not adjacent to M1 or M2. The maroon area identifies the properties that are adjacent to M1 and M2, and hopefully that helps in your consideration. The reason that there was a small amendment is I was made aware that there was a conditional rezoning, and we're still reviewing our zoning map and getting that up to date, but there was a conditional rezoning of 108 Lawrence, and so there was a property between Orchard Lake and Huron Street that is eligible, would be eligible, considering that rezoning was approved. So. With that, the only other thing I wanted to mention is I did place a memo in the packet just talking about special exceptions this evening, and really if there's any questions on what that process is. But to recap, any marijuana, adult use marijuana, with the exception of the temporary marijuana uses or temporary events, would be required to get a special exception permit. And that is an opportunity for Planning Commission to review the proposal to ensure that, you know, the health, safety, well-being of the neighborhood, it is an appropriate use. And if any zoning tools such as site design, landscaping is required above and beyond what is already in our code, just to ensure protection from surrounding uses. So that is a public hearing. It's typical for special exceptions throughout the city, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have on any of these items. So thank you.
Okay, first and foremost, so I can set it aside. We've got your memorandum that you provided to us in terms of the City of Pontiac special exception process. Are there any questions or follow-up from council members about that particular information? Anyone want to ask further questions about special exceptions? Okay.
Mr.
Oh, you have the floor. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't have a question. It's already been answered, but I just want to mention that the special exceptions, there are appeal. It does allow for appeal, and the appeal would go through the city council. The appeal could be from the owner of the, as well as property owners that are within, what, 300 feet?
That is correct.
Of the business?
Yep.
So there is an appeal process set up in that ordinance for special exceptions.
That's helpful to flag. We have not had an instance of that during this term on council, so that we have not been confronted with that one yet.
Right.
So thank you for flagging that.
I think it's regular, isn't that new to Pontiac? Has that always been on one of our codes?
That's been in the books for at least 10 years, if not longer.
Oh,
So,
really? Okay,
yeah.
okay.
All right, so setting aside the special exception question, we're in the zoning thick of it in terms of the zoning text and the zoning map amendment. We have 3 amendments that council members have identified in previous deliberations as wanting to consider further. And so we can tackle those and then take stock of where we're at. So the first, it's about how many retailers there should be for adult use marijuana for the respective overlay districts. Right now, the staff language that's before us for the reading has 6 for Walton, 2 for Woodward, 5 for downtown, and 5 for Cesar Chavez for the retailers. So Pro Tem Carrington had identified that he wanted to propose an amendment that would make it 5 for Walton, 5 for downtown, 5 for Chavez, and 5 for Woodward. Is that still your motion, Pro Tem Carrington?
Yes, it's still my motion.
Is there a second for that motion?
I second.
Okay, so it's now before us. So we've got the second reading that we're delving into. The motion, or the change, if you will, that's proposed is that it would take what's currently 18, distributed as I said, increase that to 20 for retailers, and it would be 5-5, 5-5. So that's the proposal that Carrington, seconded by James, is now before us. Any discussion or deliberation? Is everyone clear on the options?
What would overlay how many?
Right now, there's 2. So of the 18, right now, that's sort of the target, 2 would be, is right now Woodward overlay, 6 is Walton, and then 5 and 5 for downtown and Cesar Chavez. The amendment before us is 5, 5, 5, and 5. So it would reduce Walton by 1 and increase Woodward by 3 in terms of the maximum number of retailers allowed for adult use marijuana in those respective districts. And should this amendment fail, then we can consider a second, a follow-up that is more of a compromise if that fails, because I think there's pretty strong consensus here that we don't necessarily want 6 in Walton. We don't see the rationale or the benefit. That was them, staff, understandably taking what we identified as 18 as the target and try and distribute it accordingly. We have since expanded the Woodward Gateway District, so it wouldn't be as concentrated. And we still have that option, even if we don't want a full 5 in Woodward, we can, consider our options. This is the time for us to determine how many retailers is in the best interest for the city, and then how we distribute it. So, the motion is 5, 5, 5, 5, that there be a total of 20 retailers, and that they would each be 5 in the districts. Any further discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, I think everyone's clear on the proposed amendment as before us. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
No.
James,
Yes?
McGinnis,
No.
Nicholson,
No.
Parker,
No.
Carrington.
Yes.
2 yeas, 4 nays.
Okay, so that motion, that amendment proposal did not pass, so we're still at the original language. Does someone want to move to amend it where we keep the total 18, but we take the Walton down from 6 to 5, and then we bring the Woodward from 2 up to 3?
Moved by Carrington.
Is there a second? If there is no second, then...
It's dead.
Yeah, it's dead. Okay, so there's no second to, well, I'll second it. So we can at least consider it. So it's been moved and seconded that what right now is 6, 5, 5, 2 would instead become 5, 5, 5, 3. So it would decrease Walton by 1 and increase Woodward by 1. but there still would be 18 overall. Everyone clear on that? All right, I think everyone's clear on at least what the motion to amend is before us. Roll call on adoption of that amendment. Clerk Doyle.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
No.
Parker,
No?
Rutherford, oops, it's not here. Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman.
No.
3 yeas, 3 nays.
Okay, since that didn't reach a majority, that amendment also fails. Perhaps a mini compromise is, how about we then take the Walton from 6 down to 5? So that way it's 5, 5, 5, 2.
I don't know if I should support it. Support.
So who moves that?
I'll move.
Okay, and is there a second? Okay, so it's been moved by Nicholson, seconded by Parker, that it takes the overall number down from 18 to 17, and it reduces the Walton overlay from what's now 6 instead to be 5. And again, that would be overall 17. Is everyone clear on that? So the only change here is the overall number of retailers, and then it would impact, so that way throughout the document it changes it to 17 instead of 18. And then it would be, in Walton, it would be 5 instead of the current language of 6. Is everyone clear on that? All right, since we're clear on the proposed amendment, roll call on adoption of the amendment, changing the number of adult use retailers from 18 down to 17, and specifically from the Walton overlay district from 6 down to 5. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The amendment passes, and so the ordinance amendment before us incorporates that change accordingly. Now we are at the second one, similar but a different impact. It's section 2.303, table 2.1, as was the amendment that we just handled. Is there a motion to amend as follows, that a maximum of 1 adult use marijuana social equity retailer shall be allowed in each of the 4 overlay districts?
President McGinnis, I'd like to remove that. I brought that to the table based on if the first one passed.
Okay.
I'd like to remove that.
Okay. Is anyone else intending on moving that? If you could help me, Manager Yandrick, what's the current distribution and number of social equity retailers? Yep.
It's 1, 2.
Let me get an official number, just a second here. So,
Okay.
right now, as presented, there is 1 in the downtown, 2 in Cesar Chavez, 2 in East Walton, and 1 in the Woodward Gateway. And just for some secondary information, staff chose the 2 in Cesar Chavez and Walton because those might be a little bit more affordable sites just based on the cost of real estate.
So that's the current language and the distribution, that overall there's 6, and that it's 1 in downtown, 1 in Woodward, 2 in Chavez, 2 in Walton. So sounds like there is no motion to amend, so what is in that draft stands unless something changes. Okay. The final outstanding question that's already been sort of early on flagged is regarding section 2.553.E, subsection 2, subsection D. Shall it be amended so that marijuana facilities in the Woodward Gateway Overlay District need not be adjacent to M1 or M2 zoning districts? And so that's why this updated map that has color, we had a map in our packets for preparation. They've provided us an updated colored map so that we have it for frame of reference here. Right now, as the zoning language stands, only the deep red parcels are currently eligible based on their neighboring proximity to the adjacent zoning. And the key says here adjacent to M1. Does it mean adjacent to M1 and M2?
Correct. However, there are no M2 properties adjacent to the Woodward at this time.
All right, well, that makes that straightforward.
Yep.
So we see here what parcels are adjacent to the current M1 zoning designation. The green shows parcels that are not adjacent. And The other overlay districts do or do not have this designation about the proximity requirement?
This is the only overlay district with that proposal.
Okay. So if this amendment was still offered and passes, this overlay district will then align with the other overlay districts as it relates specifically to the M1 or M2 boundary.
This would be different because in Cesar Chavez and Walton, this requirement is not there. Okay.
All right. Is there still an interest in making that motion?
I have a
Councilwoman James.
question.
Yeah.
Does this eliminate any current provisionally approved medical marijuana businesses from qualifying for recreational?
It does.
Okay, can you tell us which ones? Or can you identify which ones on the map?
There is one that is just north of Nebraska that I believe does not qualify. There is one on the south of Rapid Street on the west side of the street, and then there is one northwest of Pike and Woodward.
Is anyone intending to make the motion to amend?
Let me just say that I'm really concerned that we have continued through a series of very highly arbitrary decisions to eliminate who we have wanted to eliminate from day one. And so nothing, I don't think, it's not brain surgery what's going on. So I just want to make that.
I move the motion.
I just want to make that statement.
So it's been moved by Pro Tem Carrington that we amend section 2.553.E, subsection 2, subsection D, that the Woodward Gateway Overlay District locations need not be adjacent to M1 or M2 zoning districts. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, so it's been moved by Carrington, seconded by James. That is now before us for debate. Any consideration, any further staff input as it relates to that M1 adjacent aspect for Woodward Avenue overlay? Councilman Parker?
So the question is, if we approve this, you can put them anywhere on Woodward.
So right now, the amendment before us takes what's right now red and green and makes it all red in the sense that all the parcels would be eligible. At least to apply. Right now, only those identified in red are eligible.
Okay, thank you.
So this makes it sort of a conformity. If the parcel is located in that Woodward overlay, there at least can be applied for. It doesn't mean they're guaranteed to get it, but they can at least pursue application.
Got it.
Yes, Pro Tem Carrington?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. I really don't want to beat a dead horse because I really think we need to get this done. But one thing that I said when I took this seat is that I'm going to try to be as fair as possible to everyone throughout the city. I kind of echo Councilwoman James a little bit. The thing is that, you know, we definitely should not try to limit one district and not the other districts as well. So I'm definitely very concerned with that when it comes to fairness and how we are rolling this out. So again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's definitely obvious what we're doing here tonight. And I'm a little bit discouraged when it comes to making sure that we negotiate with good faith. And I said that a couple of weeks ago, that it's important whether you win or lose a vote, is that you negotiate in good faith. And I'm really concerned with that as a city right now. And I'll close with that.
All right, so we have a motion to amend before us. God? So any further clarification needed on the amendment before us? Hearing no further discussion, I think we're ready, Clerk Doyle, for roll call on this particular amendment. It would remove the requirement that the parcel would have to be adjacent to M1 or M2 zoning district for the Woodward Gateway Overlay District to be eligible to apply for one of those retailers. So with that, Clerk Doyle, roll call.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The amendment passes and is now part of the overall ordinance amendment as before us. So I want to give the floor to, we now have it before us overall. Are there any additional and final amendments?
We did request an amendment to change the wording from should and shall. Did we already take care of that?
No.
In terms of neighborhood?
Correct.
I believe that'll come in the business ordinance, the next one.
Great, thank you.
To confirm, Planning Manager Yandrick, is there anything regarding neighborhood communication or neighborhood plan that shows or is governed by the zoning amendment?
There is not.
Thank you for flagging that, though. Clerk Doyle.
Was the buffer distance amendment, was that handled?
That was amended last week. It's prepared for the final reading next week. It's not in the packet for consideration tonight. So unless City Council would like to debate it further, so.
All right, Councilman James.
I think I've got the right one on page 40. On page 49. It should say, but not limited to.
Regarding, I'm looking at 49, so where on the page?
Okay, 49. For the purpose of determining that each adult use. Okay, I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's the next package.
Okay.
And again, the amended language from last week is not in the packet this evening. That will be reviewed in the final draft next week. So what you're seeing in front of you is the original that was presented at first reading.
Okay, on page 49 at number A, it says not impact surrounding residential neighborhoods, and it should say does not impact. So it should be I think, because not impact doesn't really make sense to me. So number A on page 49 says not impact surrounding residential neighborhoods. Should that be does not impact surrounding?
It's 3.1206, standards for approval. For consideration of adult use marijuana, businesses uses by the Planning Commission, the Commission shall review each application for the purpose of determining that each adult use marijuana business on its location will,
okay,
not impact surrounding residential neighborhoods.
Okay. It clarifies it.
Okay. Other deliberations or changes sought as it relates to the adult use marijuana businesses in designated overlay districts and amending Appendix B of the Municipal Code?
Mr. President, on page 49,
yeah.
I had one other at the very bottom under licensing, 3.1205. It says including not but limited to, and I think that should be including but not limited to.
Got it. So the previous page 38, 3.1205 licensing. Would it be attorneys who have eyes on it, you would concur that we would rather say including but not limited to rather than including not but limited to?
I would agree with that.
Let the record reflect that Attorney Kelly says, yes, that is an amendment that should be sought. Councilwoman James, I shall divine that you are moving to amend on 3.1205 licensing.
Yes.
So that it will read including but not limited to, comma, adult use marijuana businesses, comma, building, comma, and zoning, period.
Correct.
Is everyone clear on the amendment that's been proposed by Councilwoman James? Is there a second? It's been moved by James, seconded by Parker. That's now before us. I think we're straightforward, so hearing no further discussion. Roll call and adoption of that amendment, correcting and clarifying the phrase including but not limited to.
Parker,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The amendment passes, and the overall ordinance amendment is changed accordingly. Major props to Eagle Eye James for catching that buried deep in page 48. So, sounds like staff is advising that we do the final and then vote on March 28th to allow for a final, clean, and concise copy for the council's benefit and the community's benefit. Clerk Doyle, do you concur on that preferred timeline? All right, and we'll obviously discuss the next, specifically the business ordinance further, but our intention would try and mirror that same timeline. It was identified by Attorney Murphy, before I move on from this reading, it was identified by Attorney Murphy the desire to clarify eligibility for those who may apply for social equity retailers. That was flagged this afternoon. Mr. Murphy and Mr. Yandrick, do you know of any implication for the zoning text amendment as it relates to those social equity retailers, or would that be solely governed by the business ordinance?
Yeah, if I could restate the issue, it's the question was posed whether a retailer applicant and a social retailer applicant can file applications for the same location. So we allow co-location of different establishments as long as they're separated by walls and different doors. This question is whether we can accept two applications for the same exact location from a social equity applicant for retailer and a retailer applicant. And the ordinance as drafted now does not prohibit that and does not really address it.
So clarity is desired just to make it a more concrete picture for prospective applicants. But does that impact both pending ordinance changes, or is it solely under the hood of the business ordinance?
I think, yeah, Mr. Yandrick suggested it should be in both.
Okay. All right, so there might be some final language that can be drafted by attorneys for council to review and consider as a final amendment. Council members, if anyone else has final changes that you catch a phrase or you catch et cetera, the expectation and intention is that on March 28th, that'll be the day. Okay. With that, is there a motion to postpone this second reading to the March 28th City Council meeting?
So moved.
Support. It's been moved by Councilman Goodman, seconded by Councilman Parker, to postpone this adoption of the ordinance to amend until the next week's City Council meeting. Any further discussion needed? Hearing none, roll. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Well, I just want to make sure, I may have missed what you said from your previous comment, but we are going to get a copy next for that meeting that's going to show all of the things that have been approved. There won't be like two different copies with things marked out.
That is 100% the council leadership's expectation.
Okay.
From your lips to God's ears and the attorney's ears, is that clear for planning and legal staff as it relates to both ordinances?
Totally clean copy.
We already have clean copies queued up, so we cannot wait.
Okay.
Mayor Greimel.
I based on what I heard earlier, however, I do just want to reflect on the fact that it sounds like there is one additional amendment that council is planning to vote on next week, and that's to change the community input or community outreach from should to shall. So I want to be clear that that amendment will not yet, I assume, be in the clean copy in council's packets this Thursday.
You're very close, but a little off. Okay. So yes, there is one final amendment. So it can't be clean, but we'll take quasi-clean. But it's not for that action. That'll be handled in the business ordinance next tonight. Okay. It's for clarifying the social equity retailers and whether they can apply for the same location.
Got it.
All right. Hearing no further discussion on the motion to postpone for 1 week, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Rutherford. Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 abstention.
That motion carries. It'll be before City Council on March 28th. We're now at adoption of the City of Pontiac Adult Use Marijuana Business Ordinance. The second reading had been postponed last week, so it's before us anew. Give the floor to the administration and attorneys for the latest updates.
Thank you, President McGinnis. I'll turn it over to Attorney Chuck Murphy, who's been working on the business ordinance, and obviously Planning Manager Yandrick may chime in from time to time as well. Attorney Murphy?
You want to hit the microphone?
Good evening, members of the council. There's a memo in your packet with 8 potential amendments, some of which I think are going to be mooted by what you did with the zoning ordinance. Amendment 1 from last week was to amend the number of retail establishments from 18 up to 20 and social equity retailers from 6 down to 4. So I'm assuming, based on what your decisions were with regard to zoning, that we're going to amend the number of retailers from 18 down to 17 and keep the social equity retailers at 6. That was the first amendment. There's 7 more.
Does a council member have a copy of that memorandum?
I do.
Oh, okay. Then I do as well. All right. So Amendment 1, it's Section 9, licensing of adult use marijuana businesses, amends the number of retailers from 18 down to 17. Is there such a motion from a council member? Moved by Goodman.
Support.
And was there another support? Okay, so seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. Moved by Goodman, seconded by Carrington, that we're amending Section 9 to reflect that the number of retailers, instead of the current figure of 18, is 17. It's been moved and seconded. Any clarity needed? Anything further you'd like to expound on, Attorney Murphy?
Not on that amendment, Council President.
Okay. All right. Any further clarity needed from council? Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the proposed amendment in Section 9, licensing of adult use marijuana businesses, amends the number of retailers from 18 down to 17. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Abstain.
6 yeas, 1 abstention.
That motion carries. The agenda passes and will be reflected in the...
Amendment.
What's that?
The amendment passes. That's all.
What'd I say?
The agenda.
Oh, boy. Okay, amendment it is. So now we're looking at, in Section 8, marijuana business rules and regulations. Adds Class A micro businesses to the subparagraphs regulating hours of operation and prohibition of drive-throughs and drive-through, walk-up window service, and curbside service. Is there a motion to amend?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I don't know if I can ask a question at this point.
Only if there's an amendment before us. Support. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. We're talking about Section 8, marijuana business rules and regulations. Pro Tem Carrington, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. So basically, this amendment will not allow Class A micro businesses to stay open like retailers in downtown, is what you're saying?
No, it would.
Microphone.
It was adding the micro businesses to this general paragraph, which governs hours of operation outside of the downtown overlay district and also the different hours in the downtown district, so they can stay open up to 2 a.m. and then reopen at 7 a.m. in the morning.
And that's for the downtown area?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarity.
Further discussion on the amendment before us? Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the amendment for Section 8, marijuana business rules and regulations, adds Class A micro businesses to the subparagraphs regulating hours of operation and prohibition of drive-throughs and drive-through, walk-up, window service, and curbside service. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford? Carrington.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 abstention.
That motion carries. The amendment passes and will be reflected in the final ordinance amendment changes. Now we're at Section 17, Class A microbusinesses. In E, aligning the buffering measurements language to the language approved by City Council last week. In F, adds hours of operation amendment for Class A microbusinesses located in the downtown overlay district. And in G, prohibits drive-throughs and drive-through, walk-up window service, and curbside service. Is there such a motion to amend?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Goodman, seconded by Councilman Nicholson. Any further elaboration, Attorney Murphy?
No, I think it just mimics the prior amendment in the other section with respect to Class A microbusinesses, and this section specifically regulates them. So it's nothing different from what the council just previously approved, except for the additional language to conform to the zoning language for the buffering measurement method to be used.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the amendment for Section 17, Class A microbusinesses. Clerk Doyle.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Rutherford. Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 abstention.
That motion carries. The agenda passes. The amendment passes. Now we're at Section 18, designated consumption establishments. It would amend F to align the buffering measurement language to the language approved by City Council at last week's meeting. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Goodman, seconded by Carrington. Any clarity needed? Creating alignment of language? Hearing no further discussion, roll call on the amendment. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Rutherford. Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 abstention.
That motion carries. The amendment passes. Now we're at Section 14, social. Oh, I'm going to skip that because the City Council did not take up that change in the zoning amendment. Section 13, marijuana business permit application. In H, will amend the number of retailer permits from 18 down to 17. So, and then corresponding, so we're, instead of the number 18, it will be the number 17. Is there such a motion to amend?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Goodman, seconded by Nicholson. This will allow it to align with the previous decision made for the zoning ordinance. Hearing any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call and adoption of the amendment. Clerk Doyle.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Abstain.
Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
James.
No.
McGinnis.
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay, 1 abstention.
That motion carries. The amendment passes and will be reflected in the overall ordinance amendment language. For Section 13, subsection F, subsection 3, permit application process, neighborhood communication and education plan, amends subparagraph F3 to change should to shall, and add that the clerk shall be provided a copy of the written notice 2 weeks before the public meeting. Moved by Goodman.
Support.
Seconded by Nicholson. So this is something, Attorney Murphy, anything further you'd like to elaborate on? The attorney without the microphone said it was self-explanatory.
I'm sorry. Keeps going off automatically.
This is what a few community members spoke on in public comment before, advocating for, instead of it being should, that it should be shall. So that's the amendment before us for Section 13, subsection F3, for the permit application process. Any further discussion or clarity? Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the amendment. Clerk Doyle.
Parker.
Yes.
Rutherford. Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
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 That motion carries. The amendment passes and will be incorporated accordingly. Now we're at section 24, annual marijuana business permit renewal. Amends subparagraph E6 to require as part of the annual permit renewal that the permittee explain with supporting data that operations have been consistent with all plans submitted with the application, including but not limited to the neighborhood communication and education plan.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Goodman, seconded by Councilman Nicholson, that we amend section 24, annual marijuana business permit renewal accordingly. Attorney Murphy, anything you'd like to offer?
No, it ties in with the prior amendment you approved. So as part of the initial application, you're required to present that plan that is a mandatory promise to have these meetings. And then as part of the renewal process on a yearly basis, you've got to present data that you've actually complied with that in order to get renewed.
Yes, sir. All right, any further discussion or clarity needed? Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the amendment. Clerk Doyle.
Rutherford. Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 abstention.
That motion carries. The amendment passes and will be incorporated accordingly. So we are at the adult use marijuana business ordinance. Are there further debate? Any further amendments? Any further requests for clarity or changes? All right. So is there an interest from City Council to, as discussed with the prior zoning amendment ordinance, have this postponed for 1 week to allow for...
I'd like a motion to postpone.
Support.
Okay, it's moved by Goodman, seconded by Carrington, that it's postponed to the March 28th meeting. Any further discussion on the motion to postpone?
Can we
Yes, ma'am.
Can we clarify for this what's going to actually be in the, what's going to be there corrected and what won't be for this one as well?
Meaning, I'm sorry,
I mean,
like we want to see
we
a
want
clean...
we want a clean copy of what we're actually going to approve. So what's going to not be, what will still be in the...
Outstanding.
Yeah. in
My
the old-
understanding is that the one outstanding item is the same outstanding item for the zoning amendment as it relates to whether a retailer and a social equity retail, if that can be applied for simultaneously or not for the same
So
site
that'll,
or
that'll be the only thing that will not be corrected in next week's copy.
That is our current understanding.
That's correct.
City council members still, I encourage you, feel free to keep fine-tooth combing. We may find a floating vowel or a participle, I don't even know. But so it's still worth a 12,000th look when we have that clean with an asterisk copy. But thank you for flagging that. And so all city council members, that is our expectation when we receive it. All right, so we've got the motion to postpone until March 28th. Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the motion to postpone. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
James.
Yes?
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Abstain.
6 yeas, 1 abstention.
All right, so that motion to postpone passes. We are now at an ordinance to amend Appendix B of the Municipal Code of the City of Pontiac, amending Article 2, Section 2.103, zoning map, to change the zoning classifications for specific parcels on Woodward Avenue, ZMA 22-011 for Lighthouse of Oakland County at 46156 Woodward Avenue. Do we need a new move-in support because the language has changed? That's our first question procedurally, because we already had moved in seconded the second reading, presumably, but it was stale text.
May I ask the attorney, Dan Kelly, to speak to that matter? Thank you.
And the question is, do we need a new motion? Yes.
Okay. So it's been moved by Rutherford, seconded by Goodman for our...
Clerk.
Oh, yeah.
So that's based on what? Because then you would have to do the same when you vote on the ordinances next week. I thought once a second reading had been approved, if they wanted to modify, they were free to modify without a further move in support.
But they postponed the second reading, correct?
Yeah, we had a current move in second, so we postponed that active live move in second. We're trying to clarify, and that's a very valid question because it has implications for other business. So it might be better for us to amend to substitute language rather than do a new move in second.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I didn't understand the question, but you're right.
Clerk Doyle, ooh, but you said it so confidently. Clerk Doyle, does your record reflect that we have an active move in second from that second reading?
Yes.
Okay. And just to make her feel good, is Councilwoman Rutherford one of those movers or seconds? Oh, okay.
Yes, I would.
The spirit and sentiment is there. Thank you for that. So, is there a motion to amend to substitute the language from the previous document with the new proposed language, so that way it mirrors the updated language? It's moved by Rutherford, seconded by Goodman for the substitution of language. So now I give the floor to Yandrick to say, is it still a zoning map amendment, or is it a zoning map amendment with conditions? What if we just substituted?
It's a zoning map amendment with conditions.
So what are the conditions?
Go ahead.
Sure. And just to clarify, this is not my presentation. We're just asking for the agenda item. Is that correct?
How about you give your presentation?
Sounds good. Lighthouse came for a first reading before City Council on February 16th. It was after a recommendation of approval from Planning Commission for a rezoning of their campus to expand their campus to allow a multiple uses related to their core mission. And so part of this was rezoning the Woodward side, that their current head offices, from C0 to C1, which is local business. And this would allow for a mini grocery store to assist with their clients and also to outside neighbors of the property to be able to shop for some light groceries. In addition to this, in this rezoning, they're also requesting the block from Hovey to the block to the east for all but two of the properties. They are requesting to rezone from R1 to C0. And so there is an existing facility that's there. They're looking to keep that building but expand on that campus a little bit more with some service operations related to a little dining hall and additionally some housing opportunity center, which what Lighthouse has shared with us would allow for some temporary housing for several weeks and not a long-term solution. So Planning Commission reviewed this, and they reviewed a straight rezoning. City Council also reviewed this on February 16th and reviewed a straight rezoning. Staff and administration since then has been working with the applicant to have conversations about the eastern half of this property of what is slated to be rezoned to C0, which again is office commercial. And the consideration was, what if Lighthouse did not own this property? What would be the impact to the surrounding neighborhood? And so in some deliberations back and forth, the applicant has offered that this rezoning be conditioned on really one thing, that Lighthouse is the owner or the majority owner of this property. And if Lighthouse were to relinquish that ownership or sell it, where they're no longer the majority owner, the property would revert back to the R1 zoning district. So what this does is it does protect the surrounding neighbors. It does not prohibit future uses, but if there was a similar use to wanting to use maybe some buildings that existed, that would require an additional conditional rezoning before Planning Commission and before City Council. And that really gives an opportunity for the city to evaluate this new proposed use maybe after Lighthouse to determine the health, safety, well-being impact to the neighborhood if additional parameters were needed to make sure that this zoning or conditional rezoning was correct. So we definitely, I just wanted to thank City Council. I know you've tabled this several times. We've been very active back and forth with the applicant to provide the necessary documentation this evening. As part of tonight's ordinance that you are considering, not only is it a rezoning, but it is a conditional rezoning for that eastern property that are outlaid with those parcels, but it also authorizes the mayor to sign a conditional rezoning agreement. And so as part of this, that signed agreement will be recorded with those eastern properties currently, but it ideally, if all goes through, should be one property when a future site plan comes forward for this development. So that is my presentation. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have. And I also want to refer to the packet just for the staff memo for some background information and analysis. Thank you.
All right. Attorney Kelly, so the Planning Commission and the Planning Department noticed neighbors about the zoning map amendment change. A public hearing was held, a recommendation was made from the Planning Commission. Is it your legal opinion and advice to the Pontiac City Council that that satisfies the consideration that we have before us of what is now a zoning map to conditionally rezone the zoning classifications for specific parcels?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, carrying on with the speakers list. And again, what we're looking at is the conditional rezoning because of the motion that was made by Rutherford, seconded by Goodman. That's what's currently before us, is do we want to replace what had been the language initially for zoning to make it now conditionally rezoning. In fact, to make it neat and tidy before we keep debating, we might want to just vote on that amendment so that way we know whether that's what we're looking at. Does anyone have any further clarification needed on taking what had been the zoning to make it now conditional rezoning? That's the amendment before us right now. The staff has given the rationale. Mayor Graham, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you. I really just want to thank Lighthouse for offering this. It certainly means a lot to me, and I think to a number of other elected officials and staff here at City Hall. It gives us another level of comfort with the project because I think we all have a tremendous amount of respect for Lighthouse and really trust how you'll operate this kind of operation and facility. But it provides an additional level of safeguard if Lighthouse ever were to sell the property, 20 years from now or whenever, or convey it to somebody else, that new owner would have to seek rezoning or some action by City Council in order to continue with this kind of use. So I really appreciate your willingness to do that. I hope other developers in the city will be similarly willing to be flexible and to offer those kinds of safeguards. Thank you all so much.
Any further discussion on the amendment itself? And that'll, depending on that outcome, that'll take us back to the main motion, whether or not it's amended. Everyone clear on what's before us?
Yes.
All right. Roll call on adoption of the proposed amendment to the ordinance to amend Appendix B of the Municipal Code, amending Article 2, Section 2.103. So we're talking about that zoning map. That right now it's specifically the amendment to bring what had been zoning up to now be replaced with the language provided to City Council for conditional rezoning. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes, so the amendment itself is passed. So what we're talking about is what's before us is the zoning ordinance map amendment, specifically a conditionally rezoning of the zoning classifications for these parcels. Any debate on the main motion before us? Hearing no further discussion? Okay. Mr. Clerk?
So it looks like that's why I was going back through the minutes, that because there were so many changes, you never did approve the actual second reading. It kept getting postponed. So you do need a move.
Okay, so that amendment we just did was a dry run. So Councilwoman Rutherford moves the second reading and the ordinance amendment for the conditional rezoning. It's been seconded by Councilman Goodman. So now what we have before us is the conditional rezoning in this second reading. Is that the way we should do it?
Yes.
Do legal representatives feel comfortable with that? Okay. All right, so the motion before us now is for those specific parcels with Lighthouse of Oakland County at 46156, the conditional rezoning for the zoning classifications. Any final deliberations on this item of business? Hearing no further deliberation, roll call on adoption of an ordinance to amend Appendix B of the Municipal Code of the City of Pontiac, amending Article 2, Section 2.103, zoning map, to change the zoning classifications conditionally for those specific parcels as the language before us has proposed. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The property has been rezoned. Congratulations to Lighthouse of Oakland County. And that was ZMA 22-011.
There was a conditional rezoning agreement, so you need to amend the agenda to approve, to add a resolution to approve.
All right, is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Support.
And take that item up now. It's been moved by Rutherford, seconded by Carrington. We are moving to amend. Move to amend the agenda, suspend the rules so that way we can take up that conditional rezoning agreement resolution here and now. Roll call on the move to suspend the rules. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The rules have been suspended for this specific purpose. Is there a motion to?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman, that we adopt the resolution for that agreement with Lighthouse of Oakland County and the City of Pontiac. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the resolution. Clerk Doyle.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. Another round. All right. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution approving the reappointment of Sheldon Albritton to the GERS reestablished Board of Trustees? It's been moved by Rutherford, seconded by Parker, so that item is before us.
He had to leave.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak on the matter? Councilman Parker.
Yes, I would. He was here earlier, and I apologize that we didn't get this moved up earlier. But Brother Albritton has been doing a great job with the GERS, and we just wanted to make sure that we put him back in position so we can continue the work that he started.
Very good. Councilwoman Rutherford.
I just want to say I support him fully. He goes above and beyond, him and Ms. Waterman, as well as Councilman Parker, who has to decide these really, really important matters. So I'm just so excited to see him be reappointed. That was it.
We thank Mr. Albritton for his service. If the council acts favorably, his a new term would begin April 1st, 2023 and end on March 31st, 2027. Any further discussion on the motion before us? Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the resolution approving the reappointment of Sheldon Albritton to that Board of Trustees. Clerk Doyle.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Albritton is reappointed for another term. Congratulations to him. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to authorize the city clerk to publish the proposed budget amendment?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. This proposed budget amendment for this fiscal year would increase the appropriation in GL accounts 208-756-719.000, workers' compensation insurance by $5,000, 208-756-779.020 programming by $7,500. 208-756-942.001 copier lease, $2,400. 208-756-943.000 services, equipment rental, city-owned, $1,000. 208-775-716.000 medical insurance, $9,600. And 208-775-745.000 recreation supplies, $2,000. This proposed budget amendment is related to youth recreation. Mayor and Deputy Mayor, anything further?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll defer to Deputy Mayor Stevens to walk through the details here.
Thank you, Mayor. Not too much to add, just a recap of our previous discussion. This budget amendment originally would have been brought forward at the same time that we brought forward the grant agreement with United Way. However, we misunderstood the timing of the United Way grant. So although these activities were eligible activities, because of timing, they are not eligible activities. So we needed to bring forward this motion to be able to pay for those activities.
All right. And this was before us 2 weeks ago when, no, excuse me, this will be before us in 2 weeks after the city clerk has published the proposed notice. Any further discussion? Oh.
Remember, I was not here last week. This act, the budget amendment was, because it looked familiar to me, this was published.
Okay.
So this actually should read resolution to approve the budget amendment.
All right.
This is for the actual approval.
So that was moved and seconded by Goodman and Carrington?
Yes. We can.
Could you please withdraw?
I withdraw.
Withdraw.
Okay. Councilman Goodman, will you please move the resolution to approve the proposed budget amendment for the budget year?
I would like to move the proposed amendment with the
Yeah. And then do you second?
I second.
Okay. So the same GL account numbers I read and the same dollar amounts I read are applicable, but it has already been noticed, and that's why it's familiar to us. What now is before us is the adoption of the resolution approving the budget amendment. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Harrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. The budget is amended accordingly. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to appoint Timothy Sadowski as the new finance director for the city of Pontiac?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Councilman Nicholson. We give the floor to the administration for initial information.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Mr. Tim Sadowski first and foremost for sitting through the meeting thus far. So I know it hasn't been a short meeting and we've been here a couple hours, so thank you for your patience. But also, we're really excited about this candidate. He comes with really stellar qualifications. He has an MBA, and he also comes with an enormous amount of public sector experience. To be a little more specific, between the years of 2000 and current to the present, he has worked in, it looks like a very large number of communities. Most recently, he's been the financial city controller and the city administrator in the city of Ecorse, but he's previously worked in places as diverse as Flint, Rochester, Fraser, and so forth. I won't belabor the point because I know you all have his resume in your council packets, but the one thing I will add is that he also has garnered glowing recommendations from the past employers of his who we checked in with. So we feel very confident in recommending the approval of Mr. Sadowski as the city's next finance director.
Very good. Now we give it up for deliberation, and then if the council's interested, we can hear directly from the candidate. As a point of personal privilege, I'm going to step outside temporarily, so if you can carry it from here.
Yes, Councilwoman Relaford.
Oh, no, I just wanted, we're gonna talk to the candidate, correct? Okay, I just wanna ask him a question about his resume.
Okay. Please take to the podium, sir. Councilwoman Relaford.
Thank you. How are you this evening?
Good, thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I read on your resume that you were a DDA director.
I was.
Okay, how can you use those set of skill sets to be able to balance the budget in our city and or to bring more finances so that we can actually create a DDA authority?
Wow, good question.
You're welcome.
In the last 24 months, I have brought $12.1 million in grants to the city of Ecorse by myself. I'm literally pretty much an administrative and financial staff of one person. I have no deputies, I do accounts payable, the payroll, to write the grants, to do the grant administration, and everything else down. So if you look at my background, I've started from small cities and worked my way all the way up. Being a DDA director, doing economic development is what I actually like to do. And that's why I work in the public sector. Getting opening businesses from Mayville when I was in a DDA director. If you Google it, they're still there. 25 jobs for a small town. That's a big deal that hadn't seen anything in 30 years, right? So, but that's how I can help. I'm very good at grants. I get almost 90% of them that we write, even though that wouldn't be this function. More than great to help, right? Finance helps pretty much every single department. I won't necessarily be writing the grants here, but I'll definitely help with that. And then infrastructure, everybody's talking about getting money for that. I'm really good at that, which helps redevelop the downtown too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Councilwoman James.
I would just like to welcome you to the city of Pontiac. We are so excited, I guess, probably more so than most cities, since we've been without a finance manager for a director for a number of months. And we're just very, very excited to welcome you to the city. I look forward to working with you and hopefully, seeing the expertise that you're going to bring to the city to help us to develop a very, very sustainable financial process. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not the happiest with our budgeting procedures and budgeting process with our budget. It's not a user-friendly budget. It's not a budget that the average person can take it like you could your home budget. In my mind, this budget shouldn't be any more complicated than my home budget. When I look at it, I ought to know how to get the information I want out of that budget. And so I'm hoping that you're going to bring that expertise to our city, that when we look at our budget, we know what we're looking at. We can read that budget and we can understand that budget. So I again, welcome, and I'm really looking forward to working with you and to be able to benefit from the expertise that you're bringing to our city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman James. Anyone else? Councilman Goodman.
I just want to say I am hopefully excited for what you can bring to the table. I really just want to highlight the importance of someone having as much municipal experience as you do, because I don't want to even fall into the thought process that running a city is like a business, because in some ways running anything can be like a business if you try hard enough. However, there is truly an amount of wealth of knowledge that is necessary to help run a city in a way that it truly should be ran, at least from my opinion. And everything that I see here shows that not only do you have municipal experience, arguably this is the resume that would show that you just ooze it at this point. So I truly am excited to see what you can bring to the city, because again, we need that level of experience running a city, and I truly look forward to seeing what you can do.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. I've started when I was a senior in high school, and I've worked for government my entire life. So I turn 40 next month. So if you can do basic math, you can see 20 years I've been doing this. So
next on the speaker list is Councilman Nicholson.
Welcome, and we're going to have a lot of fun Finance and Personnel Committee meetings ahead of us.
Yes.
I'm serious. My question is for administration. The former mayor did ask a question or called a question, the education piece. Does this meet our city's guidelines for that are in our charter?
I will defer to the deputy mayor because I don't have those guidelines in front of me. I believe the MBA, as I recall, is in accounting or is it in finance? So that's one question. And then the other question is, what are those guidelines?
I
I'll
believe
read
that the
those
council president has it
guidelines.
right now.
That's where I disappeared to. So the municipal code states, there shall be a director of the Department of Finance whose appointment and remuneration shall be in accord with the procedures provided for in the charter, which I did also review as well. The director of the Department of Finance shall have the overall supervisory and administrative responsibilities pertaining to the administration and implementation of the functions described in that section. The director shall be responsible for ensuring that all the duties and responsibilities of the department identified in the Code of Ordinances are executed in a fair and legal manner. The director shall be responsible for administering all contracts in which services are provided to the city that assist the director in fulfilling the responsibilities of their position. The director may hire such number of full-time, part-time, or seasonal employees as the city budget shall authorize to assist them in fulfilling the responsibilities of their position. The finance director shall have a master's degree in accounting, business administration, finance, or public administration, and at least 5 years' experience in accounting, budgeting, and finance, of which at least 2 years shall have been in the public sector. So the candidate before us more than meets all requirements as it relates to education, experience, and specialization.
Thank you.
But Pro Tem Carrington?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Just a quick question. Actually, I'd like to welcome you as well. And I had a chance to look over your resume, which you come with a lot of experience. Just got one question. During your career, have you come in contact with any kind of ethical dilemmas? And then how did you handle that particular dilemma?
Yes, there's quite a lot of ethical dilemmas in public government. A lot of that is usually based around water and sewer rates, who should pay what, and I've always thought that the best approach for doing that is everybody should pay their fair share and everybody should know how the rates are calculated. And as you should say, you read the budget and you have no idea what it means, right? You read your audited financial statements, and unless you're a CPA, most people can't tell you what it rates. What the heck, you know? But at least with your water and sewer rates, I put it on a one-page explanation, and anybody that can do basic math can figure out what your rate is and why it's calculated that way. The biggest thing we had in E-Course was U.S. Steel closing in 2000 and laying off 1,500 employees. So when people's water rates go up 60%, they're going to ask some questions, right? So we successfully had to explain that and show them when you lose your largest and only employer, your water rates come up. And unethically, you may be an extremely poor community like E-Course, but this is why your bill's going up. And it was passed on a 4-3 vote, but the city's still solvent today. So that's probably the most ethical thing I've had to deal with recently.
All right, thank you, sir.
Councilman Parker.
Well, first, welcome to Pontiac.
Microphone.
This is big enough, I guess. Welcome to Pontiac, and certainly want to thank you for, as you looked at it, and what do you see as your first challenges if you've accepted this position?
The first challenge, as they've said, is the budget starts now, right? This is season. They want me to get in the door as soon as possible and review it, and I think that's going to be trying to get all the pieces together to make a reasonable determination is probably going to be my biggest challenge with July 1st. It's going to be here before we know it.
Certainly. I have a question broadly. You don't have to answer specifically, but your resume shows that many municipalities call on you and essentially seek your counsel and continued services even beyond your sort of direct formal hire. I think that's a testament and a compliment to your abilities, but what should the city council and the administration for the city of Pontiac anticipate in terms of your retained consultation with some of our other neighbors in surrounding counties.
I've only done that on the weekends. I've always done it supplemental because I've done it so long. I actually make more working part-time than I do full-time. People have a hard time understanding that as accountant. It's like a couple private probably a couple private clients. If you do attorneys and such now, will pay you more for the discretionary than your general employer will. That's the only time I do that is on the weekends. I don't do it during any city business or during the week. There's no commingling. It's not fair for the employer to do that. But yeah, I've been contacted from cities as far as Texas on how I Googled that you got this grant. How do I do it? And write me a synopsis. And I've gone home on the weekends and I've wrote that synopsis. And I actually make really good money doing consulting. Not this. Well, if you're good at what you do, you're good at what you do. But definitely nothing. Nothing during business hours, nothing during meetings or anything else. But if you look at my past, pretty much I've worked 7 days a week my entire life. If you can just look at my resume, and pretty much I do my consulting on the weekends.
Thank you for disclosing that, so that way, we're going in eyes open, and I think that's completely understandable. And again, I think it speaks that there are different libraries and public entities that look to you for your advice and help them make strong financial and oversight decisions.
They just can't find anybody anymore, right? I mean, there was 5 city manager postings this week alone. Not that I prefer to be a city administrator. To be honest, my strong suit is in finance. I got recruited to go back to E-Course when I was at Flint just because they needed an administrator and couldn't find anybody, right? They needed somebody to put out all the fires, keep the finance going and everything else. And so, they paid me really good money at E-Course, but when you're doing 8 full-time jobs, they eventually burn you out, right? Even I can't keep up. So this was really close to home, and it was a good opportunity for me. And the mayor and everybody thought that I would be a good fit as finance director. And so I said, hey, yeah, I'll come to Pontiac. So here I am.
Thank you very much for that. And
Yes.
I would just counsel, depending on the outcome or what I anticipate it to be, do not take Woodward Avenue from March 27th to May 26th. Take
Yes.
75.
Yes.
All right. Hearing any further discussion? The motion before us is adoption of the resolution to appoint Timothy Sadowski as the new finance director for the city of Pontiac. Hearing no further discussion. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
Thank you very much.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Round of applause to the city's new finance director.
Amen. So moved.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt
So
the
moved.
approval of the
Support
resolution?
Carrington.
So moved.
All right. It's been moved by Rutherford, seconded by Carrington for approval of the amendment to the 2022 to 2024 Oakland County Sheriff Law Enforcement Agreement with the City of Pontiac. We give the floor now to the administration before we delve further. Mayor Greimel.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We've got a full house here of law enforcement individuals, and I do want to recognize Captain, hopefully soon to be Major Ewing, all the folks on his team. I also want to recognize an elected official, if I could take a point of privilege, in School Board President Gil Garrett. Really, we're excited to be bringing this proposal forward. There are really 2 aspects to the proposal. One is, as all of you know, Captain Ewing works very, very hard on behalf of our community, works very diligently to do everything in his power to keep our residents safe. And certainly the workload here in Pontiac for the Sheriff's Office, the workload as a result that falls on Captain Ewing is far greater than that falls on sheriff's captains in other communities. Like, for example, the captain in Rochester Hills, and I'm sure the captain in Rochester Hills works hard, but certainly they don't have anywhere near the volume of calls that we have here in Pontiac. And we wanted to make sure that we're recognizing Captain Ewing, who, by the way, grew up here in Pontiac and is Pontiac, for his hard work and for going above and beyond, certainly beyond what captains in other communities do. And one component of this proposal is to provide some additional funding to promote Captain Ewing to the rank of major. The other aspect of this proposal would be to add 2 detectives to the contract with the county. Serious crimes are always investigated thoroughly by the sheriff's office, and they're investigated promptly. But the sheer volume of crime means that less serious crimes don't always get the prompt investigation by detectives that we would prefer. It's simply not possible with the enormous volume and the finite number of detectives who currently are assigned to Pontiac. So we're seeking, as a part of this proposal, to also add 2 additional detectives to the contract with the sheriff's office. All of those proposals would take effect July 1st. Why July 1st? For 2 reasons. Number one, that's the new fiscal year for the city, and so it allows us to budget accordingly. But also, residents of Pontiac voted for a heavily override millage proposal back in November. And one of the things that was discussed in the context of that is using that additional revenue to bolster public safety services, and in particular, law enforcement services from the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. That additional revenue will take effect with the July 1st fiscal year and the July tax rolls, and so that's the other reason why we're timing this for July 1st, because we will be seeing additional revenue timed with July 1st, and we want to use a substantial portion of that revenue to bolster public safety in our community. So I'm very grateful for all the work that the Sheriff's Office does, and in particular the work that you do, Captain Ewing, but really each and every one of your lieutenants, your sergeants, and your deputies. And we're excited about bringing this proposal forward.
Very good. So what I'd like to do is first give the floor to Captain Ewing to be able to introduce those members of his team and support that are with us this evening, give him the floor to offer further reflections and rationale. And so technically what's before us is the resolution to adopt the amend and approve the amendment to the current Oakland County Sheriff Law Enforcement Agreement between the county and the city of Pontiac. And as the mayor identified, it would expand services in a few ways. So with that, Captain Ewing, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm so honored, humble, and gracious to be here in front of you today and to be recognized by people that you work for and people that you serve. I have with me today Deputy James, who used to be a sergeant, but he left our department and he came back because of his love for the city. Chanel Thurkill, who's our community officer. Lieutenant Dowback, who came from Rochester Hills, but he said he loved Pontiac. He doubted if he ever go back. This is our waymaster, Keith Dean, and he's out there tearing them up. I get complaints all the time. Our former Deputy Commander, Ford, and a big supporter of mine right here, Robert Bass, and Gil Garrett, one of our community officers, and school board president. So, Pontiac is a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of effort on everybody's part. And the men and women behind me at that building, they give you that effort every day. They put their life on the line every time they go to a call, but they do not waver. They go to that call. The investigations in Pontiac, we average almost 400 investigations a month. We got 11 detectives, and each detective should get just 11 investigations a month. So, or 11 investigations a year, I should say. But they are extremely overworked. So the addition of the 2 detectives is going to help us. We just got another threat today from Notre Dame Prep. We got continuous threats at Pontiac High. There's a lot of things going on in the community with the homeless, missing, the runaways. All these things have to be investigated. No longer they can wait until tomorrow. All these issues are very important to everyone these days. So we just work hard for you, and we just like to be sometimes recognized and feel the appreciation from our community.
Thank you. Discussion and questions from members of council. Councilman Rutherford.
Good evening. I don't think anybody has given you more of a hard time than me. And the reason why I can say that is because I always test you in the hardest situations, and you've always shown yourself. I just want to share something really quickly. It was a situation where there was a young lady who was missing. She was missing for 20. The average thing is that you have to wait 24 hours for this person before you call and go look for her. But I went to Captain Ewan, and I was screaming and yelling. And I said, "You don't understand. This is my niece, and it's a bad situation." She was having a manic episode, and he was out of the state. And so I immediately called everybody to make them understand the significance of it, because once I explained that she was off her meds and she needed assistance, they were able to find her in 17 hours. Why is that important? Because he didn't have to get off his vacation and stop to go look for her. It could have been a dangerous, worse situation. And look, she was found and she was returned, and she was able to get the meds and the assistance that she needs. But it was that turning point when I saw him in a different aspect, because for years I would argue with him about his job, and I had issues with the police. But I can say that I've seen within the last year of me working with him in every capacity, I've seen his heart and his compassion, and also his wherewithal and how to deal with even the strongest opponents. So I'm not voting just because it sounds nice. I'm voting because you earned it, and people need to know that side of you, how you go above and beyond. You ain't got to always be liked or admired, but I respect your gangster about how you serve this community. And so that's why I'm voting yes. I'm still going to get on your nerves, though, but that's it.
Thank you.
Councilman Nicholson.
All right, here comes the nerd questions. Looking at the finance and services agreement, where do the new detectives fit in? I'm not seeing that on this budget.
Will the new detectives fit in?
Yeah, so there's all the different ranks are here. It has the number of individuals, what type of, if it's fill or no fill, and then the dollar amounts. I don't see anything other than detective sergeant. Okay, the mayor, I'll yield to the mayor.
Yeah, a detective is also known as a patrol investigator. So it's in the patrol investigator column. Now, I must confess, though, that in light of what Captain Ewing said, I too am a little puzzled, because you might follow up and say, why does it say 20 instead of 13, since he said we currently have 11, and this would add 2. Of course, we also have a detective sergeant and a patrol, well, maybe it's in the patrol sergeant category?
We have a detective lieutenant, which is in that count, detective sergeant. We have our directed DPU unit is also in that count as patrol investigators.
But we're adding, the proposal is to add 2 patrol investigators, I believe. Is that accurate?
2 detectives.
So, Mayor, the only place that I can see where the dollar amount changes is really in the Deputy 2 line. Could potentially be, I'm just looking at the dollar for dollar change from agreement to agreement.
If I could, Mr. President.
Go for it.
The agreement amendment that was sent over by the administrative staff at the sheriff's office specifically says, pursuant to paragraph yada, 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 the parties agree to amend said agreement to add 2 patrol investigator positions, 1 major position, and delete 1 captain position, reflecting your promotion. So the agreement that was sent over by the sheriff's office, at least, says that it would add 2 patrol investigator positions.
The patrol investigators are essential detectives.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it also says the attached schedule says that there would be 20 patrol investigators, 1 detective sergeant. And so I am wondering, that seems to suggest there are 21 detectives in essence, but I know you had said that there were currently 11. If we added 2 to that, that would be 13, so I'm having a hard time squaring the math.
Only an $87,000 difference between each budget.
Yeah.
They count our direct patrol unit also as patrol investigators.
I see.
Okay.
I see. Thank you. That's very helpful.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to see you, neighbor.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Further discussion. Councilwoman James.
No discussion. I just want to add my voice to how much we love and respect our captain, soon to be, what's his new title going to be? major. I think he brings a huge amount of commitment. I love his commitment, the commitment that he has to our city, to our residents. I love the fact that he knows how to build a team. He has a very strong team at the Pontiac substation of people who support him and who back him. And so I just love the fact that we have a team there that I believe really care about our city and really care about our residents. And I really believe that you're a team that we can work with. And I'm glad to see administration taking the steps to be able to do what's right for the city, to be able to make sure that our public safety is beefed up and that we're building it up, because more and more it is actually looking, it takes work and it takes tweaking to get something to where it's really meeting the needs of the public. And I think we, and especially with this movement that we're going to take more and more, we are building a public safety organization for the city of Pontiac that is meeting our needs. I love the fact that we've got community policing in our city. We've got police officers who attend our community district council meetings, who answer the questions that our residents. We have a police department that's really more and more meeting the needs of the city and the residents of this city, and I really have to applaud you for that. I know we have complaints, and that's a part of everything, but really, I really appreciate the work that you guys do.
Thank you.
Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, thank you, President. Again, I just like to thank you for ever since the first time I met you. You've always been open. I have always been able to call you and say, what about that situation? What happened? And you've always been able to give me some clarity on some of the most important, I wouldn't say important, but some of the most egregious things that are sometimes happening in our city. And you're able to give me clarity on those particular situations. So I thank you.
Thank you.
And congrats.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Parker.
Thank you, sir. I think when we think of you, Captain, and we think of three things. I think just the fact that these young men stayed here to honor you this evening speaks volumes to your integrity and to your dedication and commitment. But I've always found you to be one approachable in the community. No matter what is going on around, you've always been approachable. And for the time that I've seen you, I've never, ever seen you lose your cool. And that's beneficial when you're dealing with some of the folks that you deal with. so thank you, and we look forward to continue work with you and your department.
Thank you.
Further discussion? So as a final note, on behalf of the residents of the east side of Pontiac, representing District 7, this is a high priority. They want to see the continued impact and positive improvement in terms of making our neighborhood safer. They want that progress to continue. And this is an important step and an important investment, so that way we can continue to make those gains. So that way we are as responsive, we are as thorough, we are as proactive, and we are as safe as possible as a community. The City Council has previously been provided, and the administration has also reviewed, and we can provide this to any resident that wants to see, the number and volume of calls that the Pontiac substation receives at the Oakland County Sheriff's Department is astronomical. And that's in part the unique nature of where we're located in the county, us being the county seat, us having a number of home-challenged, homeless individuals that congregate in our community. There are just many, many reasons why that is the case. That does not make us less than. That does not make us on the pecking order any different in terms of who we are and the value of us as a community, but it makes the challenges to administering law enforcement and providing public safety that much more acute. It's a really serious situation. I think that, and I don't want to misquote it, but basically the Pontiac substation is, like, for some of the figures, like all of the other substations in the county combined when it comes to some of these figures. And so that requires us to have stable and solid leadership. There's real value to us as a city to be able to have continuity of leadership that's familiar with our city and is willing to bear that weight, to be the head of the Pontiac substation. So that is worthy of investment. And then we also want to make sure that they have all the tools that they need. And what they've identified is that they need more firepower when it comes to detectives, that will help make the ability to administer public safety that much stronger for all of us, our residents. I've heard as a city council person, a lot of people wanting to see that improvement. They're grateful for the gains that have been made and they want to see that progress to continue. We would not have as many resources to make this commitment if not for the outcome of that millage in November. So this is the most substantial, if you want to draw a correlation line, the voters in Pontiac, when they said that they wanted to see more municipal investments, this is, of that dollar amount, this is the primary focus. This is the action that we're taking in terms of what that millage will be used for the operations of the city, because it is something that will continue for years. So it's an operating financial impact. So I just want to offer that context and say thank you very much to everyone that's here tonight for the work that you have done, the sacrifices you've made professionally, personally, physically, the danger that you put yourselves in. Pontiac is very much safer because of the sacrifice and leadership that all of you have delivered. And I'm really grateful that you've already tagged the watercraft on Russell Street on the east side. Thank you for being so responsive, Sergeant. That matters. I mean, we've really seen in the last year plus the impact that it can have in cleaning up our neighborhoods and making our residents safer and better protected. So we want to keep that momentum and progress going. So the resolution is, be it resolved, the Pontiac City Council approves of the amendment to the 2022-2020 through 2024 Oakland County Sheriff Law Enforcement Agreement with the City of Pontiac and authorizes the mayor to execute the agreement. That's the resolution.
That's it.
That's that. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of that resolution as it relates to expanded services and investment in the Oakland County Sheriff's Office agreement and services to the City of Pontiac. Clerk Doyle.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman? 6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. The mayor is authorized to execute that amendment. And a round of applause to Captain Ewing and the entire city.
Thank you. Thank you.
And no slight was intended to have you be towards the end of the agenda. We are so grateful that you were able, so many of you were able to make the time and commit to being with us and answering those questions. Thank you very much. We are now at public comment. Pro Tem Carrington, are there any requests?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Ms. Billy Swayzer. Hey, you guys, you can make your way out to the outside doors, please. Outside doors, please.
Only one. Good evening. My name is Billy Swayze, and I live at 1619 Marchbank Drive in Pontiac. My concern is the street conditions. I've gotten several of those, whatever they're called, announcements from the mayors saying what they were going to do. I've been a lifelong resident of Pontiac, and it bothers me when someone says, when I come to Pontiac, I know. They're talking about the snow removal, and they're talking about the streets. And the street that bothers me the most is Baldwin. North of Walton, I go north of Walton almost every day. I go to Costco, I go to Myers, I go to Planet Fitness at the mall. And I am sick and tired of people not knowing how to fix the roads. You look at the intersection of Baldwin and Walton, and there's holes in the intersection. You go north, and you have to duck and dodge which of the holes it's going to be. You get to the light at Kennett, and okay? It's about to stop. You get past Kennett and the intersection to the outside the neighborhood, and the whole stop. Then you come southbound, and the holes start back when you get into Pontiac. Now, I don't know how to pave a street, but it seems like you need something to spread the coal patch or whatever you call it that you patch the road with. Because they spread it, and then they come and salt, and then it comes up, and then you got a hole, then they throw something down there and wait for the cars to fix the road. I'm sick and tired. You hear me? Sick and tired. I'm going to say it again, sick and tired of them fixing the road incorrectly. Now, I know that you have to wait till May to have hot patch down and to have the roller go over it, but they should be able to fix that road. When I was in District 4's meeting last week, the lady talked about Telegraph. Both sides of Telegraph north of Dixie, it's all bumpy. Then another one is Bay Street, right between Heritage School and Amos Street. There's a nice, good hole. And then across town at 143 Victory, there's another hole. And I don't know, McGinnis, what the name of your street is, but there's a hole when you come off of M59, you come up that one-way street, there's a big hole, and then there's another hole where they have repaired. Some of the repair has gone away. Would you just please fix the streets? And I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swayzer. Ms. Patrice Wright? Beatrice Wright, please forgive me.
And Billy, that's Union Street, home of those potholes, world famous.
Beatrice Wright. Accent on B. Beatrice Wright. Thank you. I just wanted to come down because I think I want to continue to educate you on the property that I live at, and that is the Links of Crystal Lake, formerly Pontiac Municipal Golf Course. Now, just a brief review here. You know, I've been reading your mission, and it says to serve the citizens of Pontiac by committing to help provide an enhanced quality of life for its residents, fostering the vision. I got a little problem with that vision because it says fostering the vision of a family-friendly community that is a great place to live, work, and play. So my question is, how many of you play in Pontiac? I play in Pontiac. I play golf. I'm an avid golfer. I bought my home on the golf course because my dad taught all of us to play golf. And when he found out we were stealing his clubs, he took us to the Salvation Army and bought us one club. So I've been playing golf all my life. But you know what? I wanted to say that Pontiac is not unlike any urban community. You see, there are two golf courses in Detroit that cannot be sold. One of them is Rackham. It's just at the zoo in Royal Oak. Detroit owns the zoo, Detroit owns Rackham. There's another golf course, Palmer Park Golf Course. You might pass it on Woodward. It's deserted right now because they closed it, but they can't sell it because those people that bequeathed that property to Detroit put in a stipulation that you may not sell this property, and if you do sell it, it returns to the family. And I guess Detroit has just saying maybe it'll come around again. Horace Rackham said the same thing. You may not sell this golf course. Rackham also has a wonderful history. Joe Louis broke the color barrier in golf there. And probably one of the first pros, black professional golfers, was a head pro at Rackham back in the day. Here comes Pontiac. Now, I have a document that has Matilda R. Wilson on it. Who do you think that is? That is Matilda Dodge Wilson. After she dropped Dodge and married Wilson, they gave Pontiac the course, the greater part of the property. I don't think Matilda was too far off from Horace Rackham or Mr. Palmer in saying, yes, our family gives you this land. I'm researching that right now. Haven't found it, but when I find it in black and white, I have something to say to the state legislature. You shouldn't have sold it to let the EM sell it. And I have something to say to Pontiac. When you get the money, purchase our golf course back. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Norman Elam. Dr. Deidre Waterman.
Been an interesting meeting. I was glad to see Captain, soon to be Major Ewing presentation. He's done a great job with his team for the city of Pontiac. I remember when I came and Captain Atkins resigned as our subs chief in the city of Pontiac. We negotiated with Bouchard that the next person, if he wasn't going to bring in a local person, the next person he should bring in would be a local resident. And that was, we held true and advocated for that. And so that's how Captain Ewing got that position. He was a lieutenant at the time. We were advocating his captain and now to be major, but they've done a great job. And I was just happy to be here to recognize that. And I just wanted to put in that piece. But I came to talk about the ARP, American Rescue Plan money. You've heard me talk about that a lot. And because that was one of the projects that was so important for the city of Pontiac. I continue to want to be the eyes and ears to make sure that we use every dime of that money the way we fought to get it done. And I bring it up now because, just as a heads up, because it's going to be on your agenda, Council, next week. Last week, there were a number of budget amendments, and way down number 18 was the proposal to take the $10 million of the ARP money that was supposed to be put in the, to cover the deficit in the budget. And I thought about that. I said, no, we should use every cent of that the way it was intended to be used to be for COVID relief for citizens and businesses in the city. That's what we fought for. So I continue to be an advocate for that. But the $10 million that they now want to put into the budget, and if you look at your packet, they want to divide it up between the districts and use that for the park repairs. But you had previously approved the other $27 million back when you, this is in your packets, and I brought a couple copies for those of you who had forgot about it. But previously you'd already voted the $27 million was left from ARP, not the $10 million, to take the park improvements out of that. It's right here, the top. So how are you double dipping and taking the same project out of that? Now that's why when people say, mayors, watch what's going on, you watch the money. I just ask you to watch the money. As you're being asked, Council, next week to take this money and put it into the budget, it's going to be harder to watch and harder to verify. Doesn't have to be done that. They can leave it in a special line item, just like the previous council did, so you can follow up and make sure how those expenditures are spent. And people are coming in and saying, why? They're calling me, why? Where's the money? After all this time, nobody has gotten a dime of this money. So I want to follow up. I just want to give you a heads up. It'll be on your agenda, and I just wanted you to be aware of that. I have copies of what you passed before if anybody doesn't want to dig it out of your packet.
Thank you, Dr. Waterman. President McGinn, that concludes public comment.
All right, we're at communications. On the agenda, the City Council communications. It spells out a number of upcoming activities and meetings throughout the city of Pontiac coming up. So please make note of that and participate with what's of interest and of benefit to you. Mayor Grimal, your communications.
Well, thank you. I just want to again remind the community that we do have our annual citywide cleanup activities happening this coming month in April, from April 17th through April 23rd. Details will follow, but I want to make sure that as many people in the community are getting out there, rolling up their sleeves. I know I'm going to be out there at least a few of those days, helping clean up our neighborhoods, our parks, our streets. And I really encourage residents to reserve time on your calendars to be a part of this. It really brings the community together. It beautifies the community. But most importantly, it really demonstrates what we can do when we work together. So thank you. Reserve those dates. I look forward to seeing you out there.
Thank you. I do want to emphasize from Council Communications, March 31st, March 31st, March 31st. That's the Pontiac Health and Wellness Fair. It's from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at UWM Sports Complex on South Boulevard in Pontiac. The event will offer diabetes screening, high blood pressure screening, mammogram screening, vaccination stations, diet and health workshop, mental health and wellness discussions, many other resources, and complimentary lunch to those as supplies last. So please come. The entire city is coming together and focusing on health and wellness, and we want to make sure that that's on your radar. Mayor Greimel, your closing comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to correct some misinformation that was conveyed by a resident of Bloomfield Township during agenda address this evening, and that is a couple of items. Number one, he had suggested that the city use ARPA dollars, which he termed Biden bucks, for the work on the Martin Luther King Bridge. And he also suggested we use those dollars for road repairs in the city. I know we've discussed this many times as council, but I want the community to be aware that ARPA dollars cannot legally be used for road repairs, road construction, bridge construction. That is a prohibited use under the federal guidelines that came with those federal dollars. So I want to make sure that the community is aware of that. He also mentioned the 425 agreement with Bloomfield Township, and that was approved during the previous administration. It's an agreement that I, too, have very serious concerns about because it gives massive tax breaks to this development that is along Telegraph and perhaps worst of all, though it was conveyed, if you will, or made part of Pontiac, that's on a temporary basis. It's for a number of decades, but then it would go back to Bloomfield Township. So there are a lot of problems with that agreement. It's an agreement I don't support. It happened before any of the 8 of us were in office. But he also suggested that we ask Bloomfield Township to help with the Martin Luther King Bridge. As much as I would love for Bloomfield Township to give money to Pontiac to fix one of our roads, I think it's wishful thinking, frankly, to think that any of the neighboring communities will do that. So I want to make sure that our discussions here at city council meetings are rooted in reality and what's really possible. I completely agree with Ms. Swayzer's observations. We could list a bunch of additional roads in terms of potholes here in the city because the roads in Pontiac are in very tough shape. We are looking at a comprehensive solution. Yes, patching is necessary in the short term, but patching is by its very nature temporary. That is not a long-term solution. And of course, the cold patch that is used during the winter is by its very nature not even a medium-term solution. And when the plows come through, it tears out those patches. So we're aware of the problem. I do have one piece of good news, which is we will be repairing Baldwin from Walton north to the Auburn Hills boundary this year. So the portion of Baldwin between Walton and the city of Auburn Hills boundary will be repaired this year. I want to repeat that because that road has been in terrible shape. Councilwoman James, who is an incredibly articulate and powerful and persuasive advocate for her district and its residents, has long been talking about that. Yeah. And we wanted to make sure that we got to that very important work this year. Yeah. But as Ms. Swayzer indicated, that's just one of many, many, many examples of needed work in this community. And yes, we're also doing Franklin Road this year, but the list of needs far surpasses the projects that we're doing this year. So we are discussing about a more comprehensive, far-reaching approach and proposal for the roads in this city. So stay tuned in the coming months for more discussions about that. I also want to acknowledge Ms. Wright and her concerns regarding the golf course. We certainly welcome any information about whether there are deed restrictions on that property. That would be incredibly helpful. We've tried to do some research. We have not ourselves found any evidence of deed restrictions, but Ms. Wright, if you can find some evidence of that, we welcome that. That would be a very powerful argument to the state that their emergency managers, as they did on so many occasions, screwed up, violated the law, and deeply harmed our community. So if you're able to find something, let us know. I'm not any particular fan of John Dodge, but I do feel a little bit obligated to defend him by noting that he was not dumped by Ms. Matilda Wilson, but rather he died and she later remarried. So I do just want to make sure that Mr. Dodge is not portrayed as having been dumped by Ms. Wilson. And then lastly, I did just want to say a couple of things. One is the $10 million that have been used and designated from ARPA for the city's deficits and lost revenue is very much in line with how ARPA dollars were proposed to be used. It's something that the federal government specifically allows. I'll also note that former Mayor Waterman, who now says she doesn't want the money used for that purpose, specifically proposed to use millions of dollars of ARPA dollars for that purpose when she was in office. So I want to just again clarify the misinformation that we continue to hear at so many of these meetings. And she touched on a couple other finance aspects that I'd be happy to allow Deputy Mayor Stevens, who has more expertise in that area, to address with President McGinnis's permission. Deputy Mayor, go for it.
So, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council President. Just very briefly, the first thing is that the $10 million was already part of the city's budget that was passed last June. The resolution that is in front of the council now is not to do anything other than to reclassify those funds by adding an extension at the end of the account number. What that does is it puts that money into a accounting stream so that we can follow good governance and classify it as it should be classified as grant dollars. It is not to take that $10 million and use it on parks. As was originally proposed, the money that is being used on parks is coming out of the $27 million that the former mayor referenced. So I just want to be clear that the only thing that is being put forward that is new is good governance and accounting and modifying the stream that it's in so that we can follow those dollars all the way to their end and say, these were ARPA dollars. Thank you.
Clerk Doyle, closing comments.
No comments, Mr. President.
Councilman William Parker Jr., District 5, feeling alive.
Thank you, Brother President. I don't have any comments other than to thank Pastor Coley Gracie for coming and praying with us this evening. Just wanted to briefly, as we sit here sometimes, we listen, and a lot of people make assumptions without facts, and they misguide people. I would just ask that if you're going to come, please have your facts straight so that you don't misguide people, because sometimes this meeting is the only meeting that people hear, and they go down the road they shouldn't be going down, and it's much more difficult to get them back because they done heard you say something that was unfactual and certainly untrue. And with that, I say have a great evening, Pontiac. Look forward to serving you in the future.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Kathleen James, District 4, we want some more.
Okay. All right, you've got it. First of all, I want to say that District 4 had a wonderful district council meeting, our first of the year, because the January and February meetings had to be canceled, but we did finally have a March meeting, and it was a good, just a good turnout with the residents and talking about the things that are important to District 4. I want to thank the mayor for being there despite the fact that he had a prior engagement, but he still took the time to come out because he understood that District 4 was very concerned about this issue with Weaver School and that property, the zoning change that was going on. He came out, took the time to talk to people, and I do think that he alleviated a lot of the concerns that they had. He brought information with him, so I really appreciate his willingness and his commitment to support the council people and to support the community council meetings. He's had a phenomenal commitment supporting our meetings, and I want to commend him for that. I also want to say that I really appreciated the Captain Ewing and the police, the sheriff's office for all of the hard work that they do as well. And I want to say that in terms of the marijuana ordinance that we hopefully will approve next week, it's been a difficult time, but I would like to say that I think a lot of the input from the various council people has been good, and I think that basically we have a strong ordinance, and we have an ordinance that really should be functional for this city. And I really appreciate the input that we got from, I think everybody on the council had good input into that ordinance. We're not going to agree on everything. I don't agree with everything that was done, but I still feel that we've got a strong ordinance, and I feel that as a council, that there's been good cooperation and consideration in order to get that done. So that's all. Thank you.
Councilwoman Melanie Rutherford, District 1, the place for fun.
Good evening. If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. That was said by Shirley Chisholm. I have a couple of questions. I can't get them answered tonight, but I'm hoping that I get the answers next week. I wanted to find out about the renderings for Maddie McKinley Hatchet Park. What is the update? When will it start and who is in control of the funds? And when will the work start? What is an update on McCarroll School? What are we doing? What are we not doing? Number 3, we have to do a better job of honoring our own. When I was at Mr. Harris's funeral, I was a little bit saddened because there was no elected officials there, even though he helped get many elected officials elected and he endorsed many elected officials, but there were nobody there to actually represent the city other than myself, and I was there in the capacity of singing. And I think that we have to do a better job of honoring our own so that the city knows that we love you, even when you're not serving, even when you're no longer here, because it makes people feel a certain type of way when people from this city are not there to represent the way it should be. I said that openly because that's how I felt. And it was brought to my attention that some of the family members felt that way as well. So I simply ask us to do a better job of wrapping our arms around people in our community that have lost their loved ones, people who deserve to get their flowers, because we all want to be acknowledged. Last and certainly not least, March the 25th, which is Saturday, is the District 1 meeting. It's going to be from 3 p.m. It's going to be at the Alley Cat. We will have Mr. Jim Nash there. We also will have our County Commissioner, Kristen Nelson. We also are going to hopefully have the mayor. He'll be there as well to give you an update. But I want you all to come with open questions about what we're going to do to make the district better and thrive more. And lastly, after all this, I want to thank the CDC for inviting me to their meetings continuously. I also want to thank the Bloomfield. What did we change the name to? I want to get it right. It's not approved yet. They changed the name, but it's coming. I think that's important because it shows that even when people don't always agree, we can come to a common understanding and be respectful and get the work of the city done. I ask that you continue to pray for our youth in this city, in this community, and I ask that you pray for yourself and govern yourselves accordingly. And on that note, I say good night.
Councilman Brett Nicholson, District 2, what it do?
Well, what we're doing is a District 2 advisory meeting on March 27th. That's this coming Monday, 7 p.m. at Goldner Walsh. That's all I've got.
That was not enough time for me to come up with something that rhymes with 3. Councilman Mikhail Goodman, District 3, living free.
The only thing I would like to say is that I truly do think that in my heart of hearts that every person that does sit on this side of the divider has a true vested interest in doing what I believe is best, well, what they believe is best for the city. And I recognize that even through all of our personal disagreements when it comes to policy, because we all have ideas of what we believe is good governance. I do have faith that a lot of us are doing this work for the true good of the citizens, and I truly want to put that forefront as we come to the end of all of this, because I think it's important for the community to know that I think that in all of the discussions and debates that we have, a lot of it is truly meant to fine-tune and sharpen policy that is in the best interest of the 60,000 residents who live here. So I am excited and proud of what we have accomplished here with this ordinance and many other ones, but I also look forward to continuing to see in which ways we can best assist and help lead the city forward. Because while we have the opportunity to, we've been elected to do so. I truly hope that we continue down that path to hopefully make Pontiac into something that is truly greater than we have once imagined it to be. But with that, I will say good night.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. I'm Mike McGinnis, District 7. It feels like heaven. I first want to say that William A. Carrington, representing District 6 and our President Pro Tem of the City Council, he had a birthday since we last met, so a very happy birthday to him and many, many happy returns. I do have some bummer news. So for work, I will not be here next week. I will be in Boston. So if there's a situation where you're about to be tied on something, or that you can't reach a majority on something, just postpone it a week or something. I don't know, but I'm sorry to do that. But have a national conference that I wasn't expecting some things to be delayed as long, so I didn't know it'd be creating a potential crunch there. So I just want to let all the colleagues know it'll probably be my the one meeting I'll miss this entire year, and hopefully we can get through it together. And that's what I got. So, is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Goodman and seconded by Councilman Rutherford that we adjourn this evening's meeting. Hearing no discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We are adjourned at 9:41 p.m.
Mike.